Chapter 52-74. For Seasons also saw the people on the ship and shouted, "Young master is here." The people on the ship were overjoyed and welcomed Xie arrival. They watched as his ship slowly approached. Just then, a huge wave rose from the river and swept Xie ship into it. For Seasons reacted quickly and protected Xie in an instant. He was about to jump into the river when he couldn't withstand the strong force and was swept away with Xie. As for the other people on the ship, they were all swept onto the ship. They were drenched and looked at the disappearing ship in confusion. "Oh no, young master is gone. He must have been swept away by the wave." It stopped for a while before someone shouted for help. Seeing that the river had returned to its previous calm, those who knew how to swim quickly went down to search. After searching for a long time, everyone was in despair. They couldn't find Xie at all. Even 4 Seasons couldn't be found. Thinking of Xie weak body, they were afraid that he would die. Their faces turned pale. "The ship can be sailed. Leave some people here to look for young master. The others go ashore. We'll come back later." Without enough manpower and tools, they had to go ashore first. Tang Jiyan, who was waiting on the shore, didn't expect this result. When she heard that Xie was swept away, the first thing she thought was that with Xie weak body, he would die if he fell into the water. Now that he had been tossed around, he was probably dead. She wasn't sad. After all, she already knew about Xie body condition. She was just a little emotional. She didn't expect that he didn't die of illness, but of an accident. Tang Jiyan didn't show what she was thinking. Seeing a group of people waiting for her to make arrangements, she immediately started making arrangements. Xie wasn't here, so she was the only one who could do these things. When everyone heard that Tang Jiyan wanted to save Xie at all costs, they had a better impression of her. Xie subordinates had always been good. No one wanted him to die, although everyone knew that the chances of him surviving today were very small. They didn't want to give up until the very end. In the following month, the Xia family kept searching for Xie in the river. Unfortunately, they couldn't find any trace of Xie. Even 4 Seasons, who was in good health, couldn't find him. The Xia family finally gave up. Old Madam was unwilling to leave. Tang Jiyan said that she would leave 2 people here to watch, so she gave in. Tang Jiyan was exhausted after sending Old Madam back to the carriage. "Young miss, the Old Madam has been losing her energy these past 2 days. Her eyes are all gray and hazy. I'm afraid that she has lost her will to live." Hong Yang said, "She hasn't been eating much recently. If this continues, even the gods won't be able to save her." Tang Jiyan said, "Losing her only grandson is a huge blow to her. No one can persuade her. The only thing we can do is ask people to serve her well." When they returned to the Xia family, they were informed by the concierge that the family Tang from Wuxian County had arrived. Tang Jiyan thought that Minister Tang had sent someone over to attend the funeral, so she didn't pay much attention to it. She didn't expect that several people from the family Tang would be here. In other words, Minister Tang had brought Tang Gua and Mu Shanji here. Tang Jiyan was a little nervous. They had been married for several months, but she still hadn't forgotten that person. Unexpectedly, when they met again, the other party was here to attend a funeral. When she walked into the hall, she saw Mu Shanji at a glance. For a moment, she had an indescribable feeling and could only nod gently. Then, she greeted Squire Tang and introduced the family to Madame Dowager. Chapter 52-75. Old Madam wasn't angry at all, but she still greeted the family Tang people. The other party had taken the trouble to come over. But she didn't have much energy, so she left it to Tang Jiyan. Minister Tang also sighed. He felt that Tang Jian was unlucky. He revealed that he would have to keep an eye on her situation. Now that the Xia family didn't have a male heir, he was afraid that someone would have bad intentions. He thought that since he couldn't come over often, he would let Mu Shanji do it. Anyway, Mu Shanji was in charge of the family Tang business and was familiar with Qingfeng County. Every time he came over, he would visit Tang Jian and old Madame Xia. C's and C's. Old Madame Xia didn't have any objections when Minister Tang mentioned this. Jian has a hard life. It'll be good if the two families can interact more in the future. Old Madame Xia knew that if the Xia family had any bad intentions, they would have to think twice. Minister Tang wasn't someone to be offended. He wasn't an ordinary family. Tang Jian couldn't help but look at Mu Shanji. Mu Shanji also looked at her. Then, he promised Minister Tang that he would handle this matter well. Tang Guo watched silently. Her father had given her a pillow. She was still thinking about how they could meet. She didn't expect that everything would be arranged. Minister Tang made this arrangement because Xie Rong had died in advance. They had only been married for a few months. He pitied Tang Jian and wanted to take care of her. According to the original plot, Xie Rong would die a few years later. When Tang Jian had a firm foothold, Minister Tang wouldn't be worried. Later, when Tang Jian was dealing with the Xia family's property, Minister Tang wouldn't make such an arrangement. Why would he be afraid that she would be bullied under his nose? Tang Guin noticed their gazes but pretended not to see it. She had already moved to old Madame Xia's side. She saw the death aura on old Madame Xia's body. This death aura didn't come from the end of her life, but from the lack of hope in her heart. She took out a candy and stuffed it into old Madame Xia's mouth. Old Madame Xia didn't notice that the candy melted in her mouth. She only felt a sweet taste in her mouth. It was an indescribable fragrance and sweetness. In short, at that moment, old Madame Xia felt much more relaxed, and even the will to die in her heart dissipated. At this time, she woke up and saw a beautiful girl smiling at her. She even asked her, "Candy, is it sweet?" No one could reject such a pure smile without any distracting thoughts. They would only feel that this smile had entered people's hearts. Old Madame Xia was the same. A faint smile appeared on her face. "Sweet. What's the girl's name?" After asking, she recalled Tang Jian's introduction and quickly patted her head. "I'm old and confused. Are you meeting Gua? Tang Gua nodded. Speaking of which, the Xia family was easy to get along with. Putting aside the fact that there weren't many people in the family, the fact that one by one, something happened to their family members was a little strange. She had noticed it when she entered the door. Logically speaking, the Xia family's house had excellent feng shui, and it should be a distinguished family for 100 years. Why was it that when she walked in, it was in a state of decline? Something was wrong here, but even with her powerful soul power, she couldn't see what was wrong. The layout inside was very proper. Tang Gua decided to stay here for a while. Although this was a world without cultivators, there were many people who knew the art of qi and huang in the ordinary world. Her intuition told her that someone had done something to the Xia family. Let's play, Amba. Chapter 5276. The aura of death on old Madame Xia's body had almost dissipated. She didn't know why, but she felt that Tang Guo was very close. Even though she heard that this girl was stupid, she still wanted to talk to Tang Guo. Grab hold of her. Even if Tang Guo pretended to be slow and occasionally couldn't understand her words, old Madame Xia still felt happy. She held Tang Guo's hand and didn't let go. It was strange that she didn't have such feelings for Tang Jian. Tang Jian didn't notice old Madame Xia's attitude towards Tang Guo. She was a little messy now, and she could feel Mushanji's gaze from time to time. She felt very uncomfortable. She couldn't help but look at Tangua, who was smiling with old Madame Xia. She suddenly wondered why Tangua wasn't a sickly person like Xie Rong. If she was a sickly person, there might be a possibility between her and Mushanji. Originally, she didn't think of rekindling their old relationship, but Xie Rong had an accident, so she couldn't help but have such thoughts. Mushanji was the same. He didn't want to think about this matter at first, but who knew that such an accident would suddenly happen? The person in his heart had always been Tang Jian. He had kept his chastity for her until now. However, there was still an insurmountable mountain between the two of them. Minister Tang, this old woman has a presumptuous request. How about letting Gua stay for a while? To be honest, I always feel that she should become my granddaughter. Otherwise, why would they be so close to each other when they meet? Old Madame Xia said, besides, leaving Gua here can also keep Jian company. If you're worried, you can leave 2 more people in the house. Tang Jian also said at this time, Uncle, I also want my cousin to stay for a while. These few days, I always feel that this place is cold and cheerless. Minister Tang didn't refuse, and now that Tang Jian said this, he didn't refuse. He couldn't stay for long, and Mushanji couldn't stay for long either. After all, only Tang Jian and old Madame Xia were left in the Xia family, so they had to avoid suspicion. However, it was completely fine for Tangua to stay. Therefore, Tangua stayed in the Xia family, while Mushanji and Squire Tang left and found an inn to stay. Old Madame Xia felt that if they did not find the body, they would not hold the funeral. The 2 of them could not attend the funeral, so they went back the next day. After returning to the family Tang, Mushanji went to see Squire Tang. Father-in-law, I want to visit Gua every 2 days. I also want to ask if the Xia clan needs any help. I heard that the Xia clan is not on good terms with the Xia clan. I'm afraid that Gua and her cousin will be in trouble. Squire Tang didn't notice anything. He had already mentioned this to Mushanji. He was quite satisfied that Mushanji remembered it. That's good too. Stay in Qingfeng County for the time being and take care of the businesses there. I'll take care of Wuxian County for the time being. Take care of Gua and Jian. That's right. Jian has a hard life. Don't let her suffer. I wanted to ask if she wanted to come back, but old Madame Xia is a good person, so I didn't ask. Squire Tang said, the only threat is the Xia clan. The next day, Mushanji went over and began to see Tang Jian often. On the surface, he went to the Xia clan to visit Tang Gua and bring delicious food for her. In fact, he was going to see Tang Jian. With Tang Gua's company, old Madame Xia had come back to life. Recently, Tang Gua had been wandering around the Xia clan to look for problems inside. She had asked the system to scan the underground of the Xia clan, but she did not find anything. She was a little bored in the mansion, so she planned to go out for a walk and disturb the 2 of them who had started to meet outside. However, before she could go to the place where the 2 of them were meeting, she noticed a woodworking shop and stood at the door. Because she remembered something. If there was nothing strange under the Xia clan's house, there might be something in the woodwork. In order to confirm her thoughts, she quickly ran back. Chapter 5277. Dear host, weren't you going to disturb the 2 people who were secretly having a rendezvous? Why did you suddenly go back? The system didn't quite understand. Tang Gua's expression was a little serious all the way, which was relatively rare. I haven't been able to figure out what's so strange about the Xia family. The feng shui was very good and could have been a prosperous family for 100 years, but in the end, this family is about to die. I've been looking for so many problems, but I've neglected a very important thing. The Xia family's strangeness might not necessarily be underground. It could be in some of the wooden products in the house. For example, the wooden beams, pillars, and so on could be tampered with. The system instantly understood Tang Guo's thoughts. After Tang Guo returned to the Xia family's mansion, it didn't need Tang Guo to say anything. It just minded its own business and scanned the wooden products in the Xia family, not letting go of a single piece of wood. With this scan, the system was also shocked. This was because it found something strange and scary in the beams and pillars that supported the beams. "Dear host, I found something." The system's voice rose, and there was a hint of surprise in it. "I found many carved wooden dolls in some of the beams and pillars. They were even red. These wooden dolls were carved on top and covered with a layer on the outside, so no one noticed them." Tang Guo understood. That's right. The Xia family is so unlucky that they died one by one. It's definitely not a simple matter. It wasn't easy to find these strange things and take them out. What method did she have to use to make old Madame Xia make such a big fuss about it? Tang Guo suddenly remembered that in the eyes of outsiders, she was a silly girl. A silly girl occasionally played with knives, chopped pillars, wood, and so on. No one would find it strange, right? Tang Guo went to find a knife and told Han Er that she wanted to carve wood. She asked Han Er to find a piece of wood for her to play with. When Han Er turned around, she ran into old Madame Xia's courtyard and started working on a pillar. She was very fast. When she was discovered, a large piece of the pillar had been cut off by her. When the servants of the Xia family saw this, they hurried over to stop them. At this moment, Tang Guo displayed the temper and stubbornness of a fool. She even waved the knife to scare those people, telling them all to go away because she wanted to carve wood. The servants of the Xia family all knew that Tang Guo was a fool, so they were not surprised by her behavior at all. They just wanted to stop her, but they were afraid that they would hurt her if they went up rashly. After all, old Madame Xia liked her very much, and she was the only daughter of Minister Tang. If she got hurt, how could the servants bear the responsibility? Therefore, a group of scary people surrounded Tang Guo and kept persuading her, hoping that she would put down the knife and stop playing with the pillar. In a while, they would find a lot of wood for her to play with. Tang Guo pretended to be unwilling and continued to cut the pillars. The servants were dizzy and scared. This pillar was a load-bearing pillar. If it was really cut off, although the house might not collapse immediately, there would definitely be problems. They hoped that Han Er, the old madam, and the young madam would come quickly. When the old madam heard the servant's report, she thought that she had heard it. "What did you say?" "Old madam, Miss Guo is really cutting the load-bearing pillar outside your courtyard. Now, she has cut off a lot of it with the knife. Quickly go and stop her. I really can't persuade her." Chapter 5278. I don't know where Miss Han went. Only Madame Xia and Madame Xia can persuade Miss Guo. Madame Xia went out to do something and won't be back for a while. Madame Xia then understood that she was not hallucinating. She quickly stood up. She was not angry. Guo's brain was different from ordinary people. It was not strange for her to do something unusual. She was just worried that if the pillar was cut down by Tang Guo, it would not be good if someone was injured. When Madame Xia arrived, Tang Guo had almost revealed the doll carved in the wood. "Guo, what are you doing?" When Madame Xia arrived, the servants scattered to the sides and made way for her. She had a kind smile on her face. Perhaps she was really fated with Guo. Even if Guo was naughty, she still did not feel annoyed. The first thing she was worried about was Guo's safety. Perhaps this was what it meant to hit it off. Tang Guo stopped what she was doing and looked up at Madame Xia. She felt strange when she saw Madame Xia's expression. She had already cut the pillar, but Madame Xia was not angry at all. Madame Xia did not know who the Xia family had offended to be treated in such a vicious way. Even if she managed to find all the blood dolls hidden in the wood, it was too late for her to do anything now. I'm looking for dolls. Tangguo tilted her head and said in an innocent tone. She looked at Madame Xia with her clear eyes and looked very serious. There are many dolls here. Then, she continued to cut the pillar with the knife. Madame Xia was a little surprised. Looking for dolls. What dolls? Madame Xia was helped to walk to Tangguo's side. She looked at the place where Tangguo was cutting and asked patiently, Guo, what dolls are you looking for? Where did you hide them? Why didn't I see them? Can you tell me where you hid them? Tangguo looked at Madame Xia seriously. She blinked and looked at the place where the knife fell. Red dolls. There are red dolls here. Madame Xia looked at the pillar that was cut to the thickness of a palm and asked curiously, red dolls? How do you know there are red dolls here? At this moment, old Madame Xia's heart tightened. A red doll sounded ominous. Why would there be a red doll in the load-bearing pillar? At the thought of this, her scalp went numb and she felt uncomfortable all over. She didn't even want to take a second look at the part that had been cut off. This feeling was indeed a little strange. I dreamt that there were many red dolls hidden in the house. I want to find them. Tangguo saw that it was about time. The system also told her that Han Er would be here soon, so she cut down. While old Madame Xia was still wondering what was going on, a small wooden board loosened and was pried open by her. Then, a red wooden doll appeared in everyone's sight. The servants had been staring at it the whole time. When they saw this, they exclaimed, "There's really a red doll. Why is there such a red doll here? Why do I feel like this red doll is a bit weird? It's like it's been tied up." At this moment, Tangguo also shouted happily, "Found it. We found the red doll." Old Madame Xia regained her senses. When she saw the red wooden doll, her heart felt a little stuffy. Chapter 52-79. She looked at the red wooden doll hidden in the pillar in shock, and her expression gradually became serious. This thing was inauspicious. Why would it be hidden in her load-bearing pillar? She walked closer and wanted to take a closer look. Only then did she realize that the doll was wrapped in some rope. She took a closer look and realized that the doll's face was very familiar. When she saw the name written on the doll's clothes, she almost fainted. Xia Lin. Wasn't that her youngest son's name? The Xia family's mansion was built when her youngest son was 10 years old. This doll looked like her youngest son when he was 10 years old. No wonder she felt so serious. Xia Lin died a year after they moved into this mansion. He died of a strange illness. At that time, Xia Lin's body was covered with big red bumps. It was scary and itchy. At first, he scratched many of them, and pus flowed out. The doctor did not have any solution at the moment, so he could only let them tie Xia Lin up. Old Madame Xia looked at the red doll that was tied up, and her eyes turned red. Wasn't this what her youngest son looked like before he died? Could it be that her youngest son's death was not an accident, but a curse? She felt dizzy, and her vision turned black. She remembered that Tangguo said that there were many dolls in the mansion. She tried her best to calm down and prevent herself from fainting. She tried her best to make her tone normal. She held Tangguo's hand and asked, "Guo, let's look for the dolls together, okay? You dreamed that there were many of these dolls in the mansion, right? Let's look for these dolls together. Look for the dolls." "Okay, let's look for the dolls." Tangguo felt relieved. It was actually convenient to be a fool. She could just make up a few words to prove the truth, and old Madame Xia would believe her without a doubt. There's a doll here. There's a doll here too. There are 3 dolls here. There are 2 dolls here. As Tang Guo pointed out, the servants of the Xia family helped to search all the pillars in the mansion. Some of them were still on the roof beams. With old Madame Xia's instructions, they had to build a ladder to look for the dolls. These dolls looked different, but they were all red. There were names on their clothes, and just looking at them made one's scalp tingle. This was especially true for those who had been in the manor for a long time. When they saw these familiar names, their hearts were filled with fear. They couldn't understand who it was that wanted to harm the Xia family like this, directly cutting off the Xia family line. The last doll is here. The place Tang Guo was pointing at was where Xia Rong lived. The doll was hidden behind the gate of this courtyard. The servants helped to find the doll. When they saw the name on it was Xia Rong, they couldn't help but shiver. This doll was lying on the bed. It looked very thin and weak. It was different from the previous dolls because the previous dolls represented the appearance of each of the Xia family members when they died. Xia Rong was clearly washed away by the waves. He shouldn't be lying on the hospital bed. When old Madame Xia saw this, her eyes suddenly lit up. Could it be that there was still hope for her grandson to survive? But soon, her eyes dimmed. Even if she was still breathing, she might be saved by someone. She would be lying on the hospital bed, dead. That suited the appearance of this doll. Thinking of this, she looked at the dozens of dolls in front of her and felt her blood rush to her heart. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. "Grandma, have some candy." Tang Guo took the opportunity to give old Madame Xia a pill so that she wouldn't die from anger. Chapter 5280. Old Madame Xia fainted. Fortunately, the maids around her were in charge and quickly closed the door of the Xia family. This matter involved supernatural forces, and it would not be good for the Xia family if word got out. They could not let anyone out for the time being. They had to wait for old Madame or young Madame to come back. Tang Jian was still dating Mu Shanji. She sent all the people around her away, and the servants of the Xia family could not find where they were for a while. Old Madame was fed a pill by Tang Guo. It was not a big problem, and she woke up after resting for a while. When she woke up, she saw so many people looking at her. She held back her tears. Who was so cruel to kill the Xia family and not leave a single one alive? Snatch. At this moment, a name suddenly appeared in her mind. Su Fengyun. Su Fengyun and she were of the same generation. The two of them knew each other before they got married. They did not have a good relationship. Instead, they disliked each other. When they were young, Su Fengyun often argued with her about small things. Every time, they would part on bad terms. The other party wanted to compete with everything he had. He was really competitive. Later, she married a young master of the Xia family. She also married another young master of the Xia family. They were enemies. It was conceivable that the two of them fought a lot. Su Fengyun had more thoughts. When she was young, she was really not a match for her, so she suffered a lot. However, she was lucky. Maybe God saw everything and was a little biased. For example, she had a healthy family. She had 4 daughters and 5 sons. All of them were good-looking, and all of them were very promising adults. TSK. Su Fengyun had been married for many years, but she could not have a child. In the end, she probably used a secret method to get pregnant. In the end, she gave birth to a daughter and hurt her body. This should be a fatal blow to the head of the family. Because of this, Su Fengyun did not like her very much. Su Fengyun's daughter, Xia Shi, was about the same age as her youngest son. She was only 2 years older. Later, her husband somehow became a scholar and became an official. He sent his daughter to the palace to be a concubine. She did not know the details because at that time, the Xia family members were in trouble one after another. She did not want to care about an outsider's affairs. In the end, they were chased out. Fortunately, her master was good in business. After a few years of hard work, he finally built the Xia family's mansion. However, they did not expect that the Xia family's mansion would be their death. It was not that she was thinking that Su Fengyun did it, but it was because she could not remember who she had offended. She used to hate the Xia clans so much because they were on Su Fengyun's side. Every time something happened to the Xia clan, Su Fengyun would happily bring people over to attend the funeral. She guessed that the other party would be here soon. After all, the Xia family was. "Madam, are you all right?" The maidservant saw that old Madame Xia had been in a daze and was very worried. "The doctor said that old Madame's blood has attacked your heart. He warned you not to sulk. It's best to be calm, otherwise your life will be in danger." "I know." Old Madame Xia's voice was much weaker. She glanced around the room and saw Tang Guo looking at her. A smile appeared on her face. She still remembered that when she was unconscious, Tang Guo gave her a candy. Chapter 5281. Although this girl's brain was different from ordinary people, she had a good heart. As the saying goes, fools have fools' opportunities. If it wasn't for this girl's dream, she wouldn't have discovered this secret. As long as she was alive, she would definitely find the culprit who harmed the Xia family. "Is Guo scared?" Old Madame Xia asked the maid beside her. The maid replied in a low voice, "No, Miss Guo doesn't know these things, but she hasn't left. I think she's worried about you." "I know." Old Madame Xia thought of another person and asked, "Is young Madame back?" "Not yet. The people I arranged to go out couldn't find her. I don't know where she went." Old Madame Xia didn't think too much and thought that Tang Jian was busy. "Maybe she's busy. She'll come home later. When she comes back, invite her over. We still have to tell her what happened today. Also, arrange for some people to find the carpenter who built the Xia family's mansion." Although she knew that these people probably couldn't find him, she still didn't want to give up. After arranging everything, old Madame Xia was a little tired again. "Send Guo back to rest. Don't run around these days. Don't tell anyone about what Guo found out today. Just say that the people in the mansion were repairing the house and accidentally found that there was a universe inside the pillar. If it was really Su Fengyun who did it, she was afraid that Tang Guo would be in danger." Based on old Madame Xia's attitude, Tang Guo also judged that she might have a preliminary guess about the person who did this. If she wanted to know what was going on, she planned to follow Tang Jian when she came back. There were only 2 people in charge of the Xia family now. She believed that old Madame Xia would tell Tang Jian her guess. When it was almost sunset, Tang Jian said goodbye to Mu Shanji and returned to the Xia family. As soon as she returned, someone told her that old Madame Xia asked her to go over and had been looking for her for a long time. At first, she panicked for a moment, but then she calmed down quickly. She didn't think that old Madame Xia had found out anything. When she found out what happened during the day, she was also shocked. It turned out that the people of the Xia family died one by one because of someone. Many people didn't believe in this kind of witchcraft. Even she didn't believe in it before. I'm gnawing at the bookshelf. Now that it was the Xia family, she had no choice but to believe it. At this time, Tang Guo was sitting beside Tang Jian. As soon as Tang Jian came back, she stuck to her and refused to leave. Tang Jian had no choice, and old Madame Xia did not chase her away. She could only let her be. "Madam, do you have anyone in mind?" Old Madame Xia sighed. "Our Xia family has never offended anyone. If there's anyone who has a grudge against us, it's only Su Fengyun. It's just that I don't have any deep enmity with Su Fengyun. Although I suspect the other party, I don't think the other party needs to be so ruthless." "Who is this Su Fengyun?" "It's the old lady of the Xia family." Tang Jiyan immediately knew who this person was. It was said that the Xia family had a concubine. As for how she was doing in the palace, it was not something these commoners would know. Anyway, the direct descendants of the Xia family were indeed very well off. She also knew that the Xia family was originally a direct descendant of the Xia family. However, for some unknown reason, the Xia family was separated from the Xia family. Since then, they had never interacted with each other. "I've already arranged for people to find the person who built the Xia mansion. I don't know if they can find him." Old Madame Xia looked tired. "It's probably difficult." Tang Jiyan was also a little emotional. She didn't know who could be so vicious. However, Tang Gua had a plan. She might have to ask the paper puppet, Elder Bai, to come over and help the Xia family break this witchcraft. It would be best if this witchcraft backfired. She could do it too, but she had no reason. She could only ask Elder Bai to come over and help. Chapter 5282. Elder Bai, may I ask when we can leave the island? For Seasons scratched his ears and cheeks at Elder Bai. After being knocked over by a wave, he didn't think much and carried the young master on his back. Even if he had a strong force, he didn't intend to let go. He thought that he would die in the water, but when he woke up, the two of them landed on an island. He was very curious. They were clearly washed away by the waves of the river. How did they end up on this isolated island surrounded by seawater? There were people on this island. A strange old man called Elder Bai and some maids and children. The houses on the island looked quite exquisite. It almost made him think that this was a paradise on earth. They had been here for a month or two. If they didn't go back, the people outside would think that they were never found and died in the water. The young master had always been worried about the old madam. The old madam had suffered countless losses in her life. The old madam had to send off her children. Now that the young master was gone, he was worried that the old madam wouldn't be able to hold on. For Seasons sighed in his heart. He could only come over and ask this strange old man. Elder Bai glanced at Four Seasons faintly. "Your young master doesn't want to be treated." Xie Rong's illness was present since birth. His body was weak and needed to be slowly nursed back to health. He didn't dare to use medicine too slowly. Recently, he had been nourishing him with the other party's diet. Fortunately, he was prepared and took good care of this island. Now that they were living comfortably, it really was like a paradise on earth. Treatment. For Seasons really didn't know about treatment. He only thought that even if he couldn't go back, he could at least send a letter to the people outside. "Elder Bai, what do you mean by treatment?" Thinking about it carefully, ever since the young master came to the island, his health had improved a lot. He didn't cough from time to time and couldn't stop it. His face also seemed to have become more rosy. "Elder Bai, do you mean that you can treat my young master's illness?" Without waiting for Elder Bai to speak, For Seasons knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Elder Bai, hoping that he could completely cure Xie Rong. Every time he came to ask when they could leave, this strange old man would say no. At first, he thought that the old man was deliberately making things difficult for him. So, the old man was treating the young master's illness. "If you want to recover, you have to stay here. Even if you don't want to, this old man will not allow a sickly person to leave this island." Go back and tell your young master that he can only leave this place when he recovers. For Seasons thought about it and said, then can I send a letter to the people outside? Young man, don't be too greedy. You want everything. Old White's words made Four Seasons shut his mouth. Out of selfishness, he would rather the people outside think that the young master was dead, as long as the young master could recover and leave. If he gave up such an opportunity, he might never meet someone as powerful as Elder Bai again in his life. Four Seasons quickly ran back to find Xie Rong. Xie Rong was sunbathing in the courtyard. Seeing Four Seasons return with a face full of excitement, he also stood up. Four Seasons, what did Elder Bai say? You're willing to let us out? No, young master. The smile on Four Seasons' face could not be wiped off. Under Xie Rong's strange gaze, he repeated what he had just said. Unexpectedly, Xie Rong was not surprised at all. Actually, I've noticed it. I haven't been sick since I came to the island. Elder Bai must have done something. Young master, I think this Elder Bai is a strange person who knows medicine. That's why he doesn't allow any patients to leave his island. Chapter 5283. Most likely, they don't want us to spread the news, right? Xie Rong asked worriedly. At this time, GC's smile faded a little. You're so smart. I'm just a little worried about Grandma. Xie Rong sighed. Everyone in the Xie family has passed away. It's strange that Grandma has never been sick in her life, but she has to watch the people around her die every time. Don't be fooled by the fact that she seems to be holding on. In fact, there are many doubts in her heart. Is it because her life is too tough that she cursed everyone else to death? Xie Rong didn't understand the reason behind the strangeness of the Xie family. Naturally, he didn't think that all this was planned in advance and that all the main members of the Xie family had been plotted against. I'll go see Master Bai tomorrow. I don't know if he'll let us go if I give up the chance to recover. GC opened his mouth and wanted to stop him, but he knew Xie Rong's temperament. He could only stay silent. What a good opportunity. But he also knew that the young master cared about the old lady the most. The old lady cared about the young master so much. If the young master didn't go back, she would be sad and sad. She might even lose the hope of living. But he didn't know that at this time, the old lady wanted to live a long and painless life more than ever. She had to find the enemy who harmed the Xie family and take revenge. The next day, Xie Rong went to see Master Bai. As expected, it ended in failure. They were trapped on the island and couldn't leave. The two didn't know the direction, how close the island was to the coast, and there was no boat. They could only stay where they were. As for the Xie family, the discovery of the blood baby was kept a secret. No one outside knew about it. Because of this, Tang Jian didn't have time to meet Mu Shanji. Mu Shanji knew that now was not the time to meet, so he went back to Wuxian County to work. But he still came back every few days. He used the excuse of visiting Tanggua to meet Tang Jian. He felt that something had happened to the Xie family recently. When he met Tang Jian in private, he asked her about it. Tang Jian said so. She also told Mu Shanji not to spread the news. If the news spread, the Xie family wouldn't have a peaceful life. Moreover, they didn't know who was behind this. Speaking of which, after she found out about this matter, her scalp also went numb. She was very much in favor of old Madame Xie catching the culprit. Since the other party had completely schemed against all the members of the Xie family, it meant that the person who did this was not weak. He was definitely an expert. She had heard from old Madame Xie that the other party's sworn enemy, Su Fengyun, would probably return soon. When the other party heard that the only young master of the Xie family had gone missing, they would definitely be happy to see him make a fool of himself. At that time, he would be able to test whether the other party was the one behind all this. Mu Shanji was also shocked by this matter. He didn't expect such a vicious curse to exist in this world. When he returned to the family Tang of Wuxin County, he did not mention this matter to Counselor Tang. Instead, he brought it up during dinner with Mrs. Mu. Is there such a thing? Mrs. Mu was also surprised. Then, the Xia clan's direct descendants didn't have such a blood doll, did they? Mu Shanji replied, there may be some misunderstanding between the two Xias. They used to be of the same bloodline, but for some reason, they fell out. It's all about Madame Xia's generation. Even the Xia clan's direct descendants don't know about this matter. They keep it a secret. I've asked around. There's no problem with the Xia clan's direct descendants. There's probably no such thing. Chapter 5284. The house of the Xia's direct descendant has hundreds of years of history. How could there be such a blood doll? If there was, the direct descendant wouldn't be so prosperous. How could there be a concubine? Mother Mu sighed in relief. She smiled and said, that's right. Ah, Shanji is smart to think of this. How could there be a blood doll in a family that could give birth to a noble like the concubine? The development of the two Xias is really amazing. Now, only Madame Xia is left in the Xias. Mother Mu sighed casually. I don't know what grudge there is between the two families. They didn't even say anything when such a big thing happened. Mother rarely cares about other people's family matters. Mu Shanji was a little confused. Mother used to tell me not to get involved in other people's family matters. If I don't, I won't be able to please them. Today, she's sighing. It's just that this matter involves too many people. If the person with bad intentions harbored such thoughts toward the direct descendants of the Xia clan, wouldn't the Xia clan be wiped out? Mu Qiqi's mother said. It's only human nature to reveal a little about this matter. Mu Shanji thought about it. That seemed to be the case. Mother Mu was afraid that Mu Shanji would notice something, so she stopped talking about the Xias. She asked about other things. Mu Shanji didn't think too much about it and answered them one by one. 3 days later, a carriage stopped in front of the Xia's house. Even though the carriage was plain, it could be seen from the complicated patterns and materials that the owner of the carriage was either rich or noble. There was a circle of guards around the carriage. Looking at the terrifying appearance, no one dared to take a few steps closer. There were 7 or 8 maids standing on both sides of the carriage. At this time, a maid whispered into the carriage, Madam, we've arrived at the new Xia's house. Why was this place called the new Xia's house? It was because in Qingfeng County, the Xia's was only one big family. This Xia's house was separated from the main Xia's. It was called the new Xia's house. I know. The voice was dignified, disdainful, and a little happy. Then, she said, I wonder how she is. The person who walked out of the carriage was an old lady. She was dressed in a low-key manner but did not lose her status. She glanced at the door of the Xia family and said, it's still so quiet. It's getting quieter and quieter. In the past, this place was very lively. You don't know. It was a long time ago. At that time, you weren't even born. She smiled kindly. If it wasn't for her strange tone, no one would be able to tell that she was here to watch the fun. This old lady was Su Fengyun. She had heard that Xia Rong had been washed away by the river and still couldn't be found, so she rushed back from the capital without stopping to watch the show. The gatekeeper of the Xia family was no stranger to Su Fengyun. When he saw her, he went in to inform old Madame Xia. This was what old Madame Xia had instructed earlier. Not long after, Su Fengyun walked into the deserted Xia mansion. When she saw old Madame Xia sitting there, she couldn't help but smile. It had been a few decades, and the new Xia family had gradually fallen from its prime to its current lifeless state. She had visited quite a few times. Every time a member of the Xia family died, she would come once. For the past few decades, she had never missed a single visit. "Sister-in-law, I heard that your only grandson was washed away by the river. Have you found him? When I came here, I heard that you won't hold a funeral until you find him. Is that true? It's been almost 2 months. If you haven't found him, it's better to hold a funeral early so that Xie Rong doesn't become a lonely soul," Su Fengyun said slowly. She glanced at the other 2 women in the room. They were natural history historians Tang Jian and Tang Gua. Chapter 5285. Before she came, she had asked people to find out about the situation here. Naturally, she knew who these 2 people were. Su Fengyun just smiled and waited for Madame Xia to get angry or faint. The new Xia family was hopeless. How could they be saved when everyone was dead? One day, this mansion would collapse and become dust, disappearing in front of everyone. And the Xia family's direct line of descent would continue. Even if the son under her name was not her biological son, he would still have to respect her. That was because her daughter was the most respected imperial concubine in the palace. She was only 1 step away from becoming the empress. And the empress, who was a hindrance, would also die sooner or later. By then, her daughter would become the noble empress, the mother of the country. And by then, the country would almost belong to the Xia family. In fact, the main members of the Xia family had all moved to the capital. This old mansion in Qingfeng County was only left with a few trustworthy servants to guard the door. She would come back to visit from time to time. Many people thought that she was reluctant to leave the old mansion. In fact, she just wanted to see the new Xia family and witness its downfall. She did not expect the new Xia family to die so quickly. Only the lonely old lady in front of her was left. Someone once praised Shiringying's good name and said that the new Xia family would become a prosperous family within 100 years. Not only would they have properties all over the world, but their children would also have a bright future. It would not be a problem for them to become a family that would last for hundreds of generations. That person's comment was that she was not fated to have children. Her life was full of ups and downs, and she was doomed. She did not believe in heresy, but after she got married, she really did not have any children. When she was in her 40s, she saw that Shi Yinger had both a daughter and a son. She could not sit still anymore. Later, she used a secret formula and finally got pregnant. In the end, she only had a daughter. "Ah, Rong will come back. You don't have to worry about that." Madame Xia's attitude towards Su Fengyun was very cold. She did not miss the smirk on Su Fengyun's face. She was gloating, and the joy in her eyes. She was more and more suspicious that the person who did this was the other party. However, the people she sent out to look for carpenters and workers did not find anything. They could not find the whereabouts of those people. It was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. "Yes, it's time to go. Sister-in-law, take care. Although it's always the white-haired who sends off the black-haired, don't be too sad. With the current Xia family, aren't you afraid that such a thing will happen again? This is the good thing about having a tough life. Even if everyone around you dies, you can still live well." Old Madame Xia was indeed very angry. This was her weakness. Tang Jian was also angered. She only felt that this person was really unreasonable. How could he say such things? She didn't know what grudges there were between the two. What made her even more curious was that before Su Fengyun left, she took a deep look at Tang Jian. That look was full of scrutiny. Tang Jian couldn't understand the meaning behind it. Anyway, It wasn't malicious. There was even a faint sense of expectation, which was even more confusing. From Su Fingyun's behavior, Tang Guo could tell that she definitely knew something. She was most likely the one who controlled the hidden blood doll. She also noticed the way Su Fengyun looked at Tang Jian. She didn't quite understand either. She had already sent a message to the puppet, Elder Bai, asking him to come out when he was free and solve the problem of the Xia family's blood doll. Although the curse would not affect the Xia family, she had to make the person who set up this curse suffer a backlash. On the way back to the old mansion, Su Fengyun passed by the market outside. She suddenly stopped when she heard people talking about the Xia family's blood doll. What blood doll? Go and ask. Madame Xia also received the news that many people outside were talking about the Xia family finding the blood doll. Chapter 5286. Forget it. There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Now that people know about the blood doll incident, there's no way to stop it. Everyone is talking about it. I'm afraid we won't be able to find the source even if we investigate. Maybe it was the servant who let it slip. Compared to finding out the real culprit who harmed the Xia family, she no longer cared about such trivial matters. She was hanging on to her last breath for no other reason than revenge. Once the grudge was resolved, she would dismiss some of the servants and let Tang Jian make the decisions in the house. The system suddenly showed off. No guesses. Who is it? Because at this time, the system was distracted to keep an eye on Tang Jian and Mu Shanji all the time. Not only that, but the entire Wuxian county was under its surveillance. Because the time of the family's destruction was getting closer and closer, if it did not keep an eye on things, it would be too late to react. As long as something strange happened around Wuxian County, Tang Guo would be able to create paper puppets in time to rescue the family. Therefore, the entire family was currently under the system's surveillance. For the system, multitasking was not a problem. Since you mentioned that Tang Jian told Mu Shanji about this, the person who spread the news should be related to Mu Shanji. It should be Mu Shanji's mother, right? Tang Guo had already thought of something. She did not forget some of the information mentioned in her memory. Imperial concubine Xia's surname was Xia. Previously, she did not connect the dots. If Mu Shanji's mother was behind this, then Imperial concubine Xia should be a direct descendant of the Xia family. She should be Su Fingyun's promising daughter. With this, all the connections were connected. Mu Shanji was most likely Imperial concubine Xia's son. Mu Shanji's mother spread the news about the blood doll probably because she did not know that this matter was related to Su Fengyun. She was afraid that the direct descendant of the Xia family would have such a terrifying thing in their house, so she used this method to remind them. Next, keep an eye on Su Fengyun and see if she will talk about this matter to herself. In reality, Tang Guo was not disappointed. After Su Fengyun heard the rumors, she returned to the old house. When she returned to the house, she chased everyone out and said that she wanted to rest and did not want to be disturbed. She didn't rest in the room. Instead, she laughed softly. What's the use of this thing being discovered now? It has already served its purpose. Even if it is dug out and thrown away, nothing can be salvaged. Now we can only wait for the Empress to become a dead person, and Xiang to ascend to the Empress throne. Shiying, who has lost all her family, must be living in the most pain. There's nothing I can do about it. If she wants to blame someone, she can only blame her fate for being too good. She just had to go against me. Tang Guo listened to the system's words and fell into silence. I don't know where Master Bai is. I feel that not only will he have to come to the Xia family, he will also have to make a trip to the Imperial Palace. Who knows, he might even be able to become an Imperial Preceptor. I wonder if he would be willing to experience such a life. A few days later, Elder Bai arrived at the Xie residence. At this time, everyone in Qingfeng County was talking about the blood doll. There were even some people who were well versed in medicine who came to visit. They wanted to see if they could help the Xia family to solve the blood doll curse. Those who came all returned one by one. They sighed that their skills were too weak and that they couldn't help. Actually, those who came all sighed in their hearts. Even if they could solve it, it was too late. The new Xia family only had an old lady and a young lady who was widowed. Old Madame Xia didn't reject those who were well versed in medicine. She also wanted to find a powerful person who could help her take revenge, even if it meant losing all the family fortune. Therefore, when Elder Bai came, she treated him as a guest of honor. Elder Bai didn't know how to do this, but he was born with intelligence. He could easily scare people with a few words. Anyway, the master was here. If there was anything she didn't understand, she could just ask him. I can break this curse. Not only can I break it, but I can also make the other party suffer from the backlash, Elder Bai said mysteriously. Old Madame Xia quivered and became serious. Then, she directly knelt in front of Elder Bai. Elder Bai used his power to stop her. No need. He didn't want to shorten his lifespan. The paper puppet also cherished its life. New website. To download the latest TXT ebook, click here. To read this book on mobile. To post a review. To make it easier for you to read this book next time, you can click the Save button at the bottom to record this book. You will be able to see it the next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends. Thank you for your support. Chapter 5287. Master, what do we need to prepare to break this curse? Madame Xia asked excitedly. What kind of backlash will the curse cause? Can we find the person who cast the curse? She suspected Su Fengyun, but she couldn't find any evidence. Seas and seas. Master Bai's expression was unfathomable. Only Tang Guo knew that he was just putting on an act. He pondered for a while and said, Prepare an empty courtyard for me. No one is allowed to disturb me during the ritual. Just send the food to the entrance of the courtyard. Madame Xia nodded repeatedly to show that she understood. She ordered the servant beside her to write it down. This time, Tang Jiyan listened attentively. She was also a little afraid of this terrible curse. It was good that it could be solved. Otherwise, she would have to worry every day about the undiscovered blood doll hidden in the house. After Master Bai gave his instructions, he was led into a clean and remote courtyard by the servant. He wandered around and asked someone to bring the blood dolls they found earlier into the courtyard. Then, he chased everyone out. He didn't even allow anyone to guard the entrance of the courtyard. He told them to go as far as they could. At night, he climbed over the wall of the courtyard and went to Tangua's place. Tangua had been waiting there for a long time. Old Bai took down a bag and opened it, only to find that it was filled with blood dolls. When she was found earlier, there were so many people watching. She didn't observe the blood dolls carefully. Now, after careful inspection, she found that the person who cast the curse was too cruel. These blood dolls can not only take the lives of the Xia family members, but also transfer all of the Xia family's fate. The person who receives the Xia family's fate is bound to be rich in the future. Even if they experience some disasters, they will be able to overcome them. The Xia family's fate was to be prosperous and prosperous for 100 generations. However, someone stole their life and fate. Unfortunately, they found out too late. The person who receives the fate of a prosperous family will be in charge of 100 generations. It doesn't make sense that they don't rule the world. Combined with Mu Shanji's experience in her memory, didn't the Xia family control half of the world? If the Xia family didn't control half of the world, how could they help Mu Shanji sit on the throne? The current empress and her family were not to be trifled with. She just didn't know if the empress was harmed in the same way, or if she was sick in the first place. Tang Guo was more inclined to believe that the empress's illness had something to do with Su Fengyun. "Master, is this curse easy to break?" Elder Bai was a little worried when he heard that. He was afraid that he was bragging and that he wouldn't be able to break the curse even after a few days. "It's just a curse. It's nothing complicated. However, if you want to cause the other party to suffer a backlash, the process will be a little complicated. I'll need at least 3 days to prepare." Elder Bai heaved a sigh of relief. "That's good." For the rest of the time, Elder Bai stayed in the courtyard and did not go out. The people outside thought that he was concentrating on studying how to break the curse, but in reality, they did not know that he was very bored staying in the yard. Fantasy 7 Huan. Elder Bai had instructed them not to leave their rooms for the next few days. If they could stay in their rooms, they should stay in their rooms. Therefore, if there was nothing to do, the Xia family would stay in their rooms. They were afraid that they would be infected by the terrifying curse. Tang Jian had to take care of the Xia family's business and her own, so she had to go out. Chapter 5288. When she went out, she would inevitably run into Mu Shanji. When she saw Mu Shanji, she couldn't help but tell him about Master Bai's appearance. It was not a secret that many people who were proficient in Qi and Huang had come to the Xie family. Many people were paying attention to it, and Mu Shanji knew about it. Can Master Bai really break the curse of the blood doll? Mu Shanji asked curiously. Could it be that he's half-baked and gave up halfway? It was no wonder that he thought so. There had been a lot of such things before. Some people with special abilities wanted to try, but they all failed. They shook their heads and said that they were not skilled enough to help. "I think it will most likely work this time. That Elder Bai looks like an otherworldly expert." None of the people who appeared before could compare to her. Previously, old Madam wanted to kneel and thank him, but she couldn't. "He must have done something," Tang Jian said. "It's best if this matter can be solved." Mu Shanji agreed. "Yes, if it's not solved, I'll be worried about you living in the Xie family." At this point, both of them fell silent. Even though they often met, they never talked about love again. They had a tacit understanding. Every time they met, they would talk about other things. They didn't talk about love, but both of them could understand each other. "I have to rush back to Wuxian County tomorrow morning. Take care of yourself. You can teach Hongyang and Qingyang what to do outside. Don't come out and make trouble. I'm afraid this matter will endanger your safety." Tang Jian replied in a low voice, "I know. Then I'll leave." Mu Shanji stood up and was about to leave. After taking 2 steps, he quickly walked back and took out a golden hairpin from his arms. There was a magpie on it. It was very likable. It was as if it was flying in front of people's eyes. "It's your birthday in a few days. Now that something big has happened in the Xia family, I'm afraid I can't do it. I saw this by chance. I think it's very suitable for you." Tang Jian didn't take it. Mu Shanji put it in her hair, turned around, and ran away. Tang Jian looked at his back. She didn't stop him, nor did she chase after him. She didn't take off the golden hairpin and throw it away. Tang Guo was busy with the curse, so she didn't know what was going on here. Even if she knew, she probably wouldn't care. The next day, Mu Shanji hurried back to the Xia family in Wuxian County. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Minister Tang walking in with a smile. "Father-in-law, why are you so happy today?" Mu Shanji asked casually. Squire Tang smiled and said, "It's Guo Er's birthday in a few days. Today, I went out to see if there's anything interesting. I've already ordered it and will send it over in a few days. Speaking of this, Squire Tang paused for a moment and said, Xian's birthday is also in those days. It's only 2 or 3 days away, so I picked an extra set and sent one to her. Mu Shanji was stunned. He thought about it carefully. It seemed that Tang Guo's birthday was not much different from Tang Ji's. Anyway, they were very close to each other. Every few days, he would receive a lot of snacks. In any case, he would bring back a lot of snacks. After all, Tang Guo was Squire Tang's beloved daughter. What couldn't she get on her birthday? Since Squire Tang mentioned it, he naturally wouldn't forget. Then I'll think about what gift to give Guo. Haha, that's fine. Go and think about it. Tell the servants not to disturb you. Squire Tang was very happy that Mu Shanji had such a thought. If it's really from you, Guo will like it. Mu Shanji didn't feel much about this sentence. He just thought that he would ask Guo to do it later. The Peak. Chapter 5289. Young Master, what does Miss Guo like? Guo was a little confused. Is it food or toys? Mu Shanji didn't care much about it and said casually, you can prepare whatever you want. Food or toys are fine, as long as it's a gift. So, Guo could only continue to be troubled. Mu Shanji didn't want to waste time on this kind of thing, so he continued to read. When Mu Shanji's mother came and saw Mu Shanji reading seriously, she sighed. Ah, Shan, you like to read so much. Do you feel wronged because you married into the family Tang and lost the chance to pass the exam? Mother, how can you say that? It's good to marry into the family Tang. Mu Shanji's mother shook her head but didn't say anything else. She knew that Mu Shanji liked to read, and he once wanted to pass the exam, but she couldn't let Mu Shanji take that path. When her master handed Ashan to her, he said that unless they found him, Ashan would never be allowed to return to that whirlpool. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. If Ashan passed the exam, he would be exposed to some people, and he would lose his life. Now, they could only endure. If that day didn't come, Ashan would be the son-in-law of the family Tang, and his life wouldn't be bad. If that day came, Ashan would be able to endure it. How's the Xie family? Mu Shanji's mother changed the topic. Last time, she secretly spread the news that the Xie family found the blood doll because she wanted to remind the direct descendants of the Xie family. She thought that they would pay attention to this matter when they heard the news. She asked this because she wanted to know about the situation of the direct descendants of the Xie family. If something happened, Mu Shanji would definitely tell her. After some talkative servant spread the news that the Xie family found the blood doll, it attracted many people who knew the art of medicine. They were very interested in the curse of the blood doll, but they didn't know how to do it, so they left in the end. But a few days ago, a white-haired old man in white clothes came. It seems that he has some skills. He said that he can break the curse. He has already lived in the Xie family for 2 days. We can only wait a few more days to see if he can break the curse. Mu Shanji's mother didn't know what the curse was about. She thought that someone really did something to the Xie family. Hearing that someone was able to break the curse, he heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. At the same time, Su Fengyun also learned that a white-haired old man in white had moved into the Xie family. It was said that he could break the curse of the blood doll. She didn't mind. So many people had come before, but none of them had been able to break the blood doll's curse. In this world, there were only a few people like the one she had met. However, for the sake of safety, she still wrote a letter and asked someone to deliver it to a place very far away. It was the place where the expert lived. All these years, although that expert did not help her, she would often send some useful things to him, and he did not refuse. After all, he had given her some useful things over the past few decades. She was just reminding the expert that someone wanted to break his blood doll curse. On the third day, Tanguo finally understood the curse of the blood doll. Then, she started to break the curse. After a series of operations, every blood doll returned to its original wooden color. She also erased the strange carvings on its body. With her divine sense, she could see that there was a black smoke coming out of the blood dolls' heads. At the same time, the Xia family's luck that was constantly flowing out was cut off somewhere. It no longer floated away. Instead, the black smoke was dispersing everywhere. Chapter 5290. As for where to scatter them, of course, it was to those who had taken over the Xia family's fate. She did not know what would happen in the future, but nothing good would happen. In the end, she burned all the blood dolls to completely end this cruel curse. Daoist priest, has the curse on the Xia family been broken? Master Bike stepped out of the courtyard and was surrounded by the Xia family members. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. How did these people know? But thinking of his identity, he pretended to be profound and nodded. You all know. Just a while ago, I had an indescribable feeling. It was as if the huge rock pressing down on me suddenly disappeared. Before this, I always felt that the sun in the house was not warm enough. Now that I feel a different sun, my whole body feels relaxed, old Madame Xia said. So I brought people here. I didn't expect Master Bai to come out. I guess the curse has been broken. Yes, it has been broken. Don't worry. The Xia family will not be troubled by the curse in the future. Master Bai said, unfortunately, it has already happened. This matter was discovered too late. A hint of hatred flashed across old Madame Xia's eyes. Yes, it was really too late. Master Bai, the person who cast the curse, Master Bai said with a smile, the person who cast the curse has already suffered a backlash. If I'm not wrong, his body is already rotten and he's dead. As for those who stole the Xia family's fate for their own use and defied the heavens to change their fate, they will not have an easy time in the future. Without the support of the Xia family's fate, their fate will return to its original state, or even more miserable than before. What will happen, you just have to wait and see. Of course, this was what Tanguo said. Master Bai was just passing on the message. Old Madame Xia felt refreshed when she heard this. In this way, she could vent the anger in her heart. Whether it was Su Fengyun who did it or not depended on what the other party would do next. She still had to take care of her old bones. If the direct descendants of the Xia family really harmed the Xia family, she would personally witness what would happen to them. Old Madame Xia's eyes turned red when she thought of how she had sent away her family members one by one in the past few decades. After the curse of the Xia family came to an end, Master Bai was assigned a task by Tanguo to go to the capital to approach the Empress. She didn't care if the Empress was a good person or a bad person. As long as the Empress was against the Xia family, imperial concubine Xia, then they were friends. Elder Bai went over to treat the Empress's illness. Naturally, the Xia family would suffer. She guessed that Su Fengyun didn't do anything to the Empress like the Xia family. At most, imperial consort Xia used some dirty tricks. Otherwise, how could an ordinary Empress suppress imperial concubine Xia for so many years without daring to breathe? She could only make a big move after she died. He didn't even dare to raise his own son by his side. You don't have to cure the Empress' illness completely. You just have to keep her alive for now. Tanguo said to Master Bai, I suspect that the person who killed the family was arranged by the Empress. Pay attention to this matter. If it was arranged by the Empress, only help her to keep her alive. When she kills imperial concubine Xie, let both of them suffer. If you see a suitable person, help this person to reap the benefits. Neither of them will benefit. Master Bai said, Master, I feel that my task is getting heavier and heavier. This is because you are more capable. I trust you, Tangguo praised. Chapter 5291. Master Bai didn't really like it, but he still nodded subconsciously. You should show more of your ability to coax the emperor and become the state preceptor. Then, you can control the situation, right? Don't you like to build fairyland-like pavilions on the island? All of these require money. If you do well for the emperor, you can take charge of the world. When you live in seclusion in the future, the emperor will definitely arrange for people to build you a house. You can have whatever house you want. Don't you feel comfortable? Master Bai's eyes lit up. Although he could make money, those exquisite and luxurious decorations couldn't be earned in a short period of time. Some treasures couldn't be bought with money. It required luck. It was said that there were many rare treasures in the palace. Master, I'll go now. Master Bai took the few books that Tangguo gave him and rushed in the direction of the capital. He hired a carriage and finished reading the books in the carriage. These books were about the art of divination. Although they couldn't topple mountains and overturn seas, they were enough to predict the situation. As the state preceptor, knowing these should be a basic ability. Back at the Xie family's old residence, Su Fengyun hadn't returned to the capital yet. She planned to stay here for a while and wait for the expert's letter. She had heard that the Xie family had broken the curse of the blood doll. However, she didn't see any difference. She thought that the white-haired old man in white was a swindler who came to cheat the Xie family of their money. The money was gone, and so was the person. In fact, the curse was not broken. However, she still felt uneasy. She wouldn't leave until she got a reply from the expert. After about 10 days, the person she sent to deliver the letter finally came back. How is it? The guard didn't know the details because Su Fengyun was delivering the letter to an old friend. Therefore, even if he saw something unusual in the past, he didn't think it was a big deal. Therefore, Su Fengyun didn't find anything unusual from the guard's face. Madam, when the letter was delivered, something had happened there. The owner of the thatched cottage passed away the day before. Su Fengyun was stunned and looked nervous. Passed away. How could it be? That was an expert who could defy the heavens and change one's fate. How could he pass away? In her opinion, since the old man could change fate, he must be able to change his own fate. He shouldn't die. At this time, she still did not realize the seriousness of the matter. Did they die of a strange disease or was it discovered by a nearby farmer? When this humble one went over, the surroundings of the thatched cottage were filled with a foul stench, and the plants were all withered. I even went to take a look. That person's skin was festering all over, and I didn't know what kind of illness it was. The nearby villagers were afraid of contagious diseases, so they could only cremate him. The thatched huts were also gone. Even the withered plants in the surroundings were burned. Finally, a pit was filled at the spot where he used to be and buried him. The guard answered truthfully. He didn't know that Su Fengyun's heart was in turmoil, and she almost couldn't stand still. If that expert had died of old age, she wouldn't have much of a reaction. At most, she would be in disbelief and shock. She was terrified when she heard about the other party's death. This way of dying sounded very scary. Strange disease, was it really a strange disease? What kind of strange disease could actually cause the surrounding vegetation to wither and give off an incomparably foul smell? That place had been burned down, so it would be impossible to find anything useful there. Su Fengyun was a little frightened. She felt that it was not safe here, so she planned to bring people back to the capital the next morning. Who knew that when she stepped out of the threshold the next morning, she stepped on something and fell down, and her journey had to be postponed. Paralyzed. Old Madame Xia was surprised. Isn't she very agile? How could she be paralyzed? I heard that she tripped on the threshold and can't move her left side. She can only stay in bed. Now, I've arranged for someone to go to the capital to ask Imperial Concubine Xia to invite an Imperial physician. Old Madame Xia's eyes lit up. Could this be the backlash? Tang Guo's 2 index fingers kept crossing in circles. Her gaze swept across Tang Jian's face. She didn't know when Tang Jian and Mu Shanji would be able to make a fire. Should she give them some space? System, dear host, your eyes are very strange. I've stayed in the house for so long. I want to go out for a walk. Tang Guo didn't answer the system. Instead, she said, I'll go back to find father tomorrow. I want to enjoy the sea breeze and see the sea. System, is that so? Why didn't he believe it? Did he think that little Tongzi was easy to fool? Chapter 5292. Old Madame Xia was very reluctant to let Tang Guo leave the Xia family. However, she knew that she couldn't let Tang Guo stay at home forever. After returning to the mansion, Tang Guo stayed there for 2 days. She wanted to go to the sea and take a boat, but she didn't succeed. Tang Guo was speechless. Minister Tang was worried. The Xia family's young master had an accident not long ago and it was in the river. He was afraid that he couldn't control the risk in the sea, so he didn't allow Tang Guo to take a boat to the sea. After much persuasion, he only agreed to let her watch the sea from the shore. She couldn't think about going into the sea. The system comforted Tang Guo. Tang Guo said, I forgot that as a fool, how can my family let me go to the sea? If I'm a normal person, this matter will be much easier. Since Minister Tang objected to her taking a boat to the sea, Tang Guo could only give up the idea. She followed Minister Tang's arrangement and played by the sea for a while. She didn't need to go out to the sea. She could play on the shore. Minister Tang could arrange more people to accompany Tang Guo. As for Mu Shanji, he could take care of the family business. When Mu Shanji heard that Tang Guo wanted to play by the sea, he was immediately happy. Then you should arrange more people to take care of Guo and guards. Of course, I've arranged all these. Shanji, take care of the family business during this period. When you're not so busy, you can play with Guo next time. It was rare for Minister Tang to have such an opportunity. Of course, he didn't want to miss it. Since he handed over the family business to Mu Shanji, he had more time to accompany his daughter and make up for the regrets in the past. Mu Shanji didn't feel uncomfortable at all that he didn't need to accompany Tang Guo. Instead, he was very happy. If he didn't have to stay with Tang Guo, then he wouldn't stay with her. Otherwise, he would feel that he was doing something wrong to Tang Jian. After Tang Guo and Minister Tang left, Mu Shanji felt that the air in the mansion was fresher. It was as if the burden on his body was lifted. Without Counselor Tang by his side, he went to Qingfeng County more diligently. After he went there, he was not as rushed as before. He had to go back the next day. He could stay there for a while longer and meet up with Tang Jian more often. Every time Tang Jian talked to him about the Xia family, Mu Shanji would habitually ask about what had happened to the Xia family after seeing her. Tang Jian said, ever since the old lady of the Xia family fell and became paralyzed, she has been in a good mood every day. Why did I hear that someone came from the capital? Was it someone sent by the Xia family to pick up the old madam? The direct descendants of the Xia clan were such a big clan. Even the slightest movement would cause an uproar. In any case, the Xia clan had produced an imperial concubine, so her status was not ordinary. She was picked up early this morning. I heard that when she went out, she even knocked the old lady down and knocked her front teeth out. Originally, they planned to stay for 2 days, but the old lady waved her hand and asked everyone to hurry up, as if there was a demon in the old house. I think the old madam might have something to do with the blood doll. This must be the backlash that Elder Bai mentioned. Chapter 5293. Previously, Tang Xian was skeptical about the backfire. Now that the old madams of the Xia family had accidents one after another, she had no choice but to believe it. Outsiders didn't know that the blood doll might be related to her. But Tang Xian had heard the old madam say it herself, so she had to make this guess. Mu Shanji chimed in, that means that Elder Bai is really a master. Speaking of this, the two suddenly fell silent. Without Tang Gua in the middle, they were much more free to meet each other. Mu Shanji was not used to Tang Xian's sudden silence. How have you been in the Xia family recently? Very good. The old madam is very good to me. She left all the big and small matters in the family to me. I'm also gradually managing the Xia family's business. She doesn't avoid me. Speaking of this, Tang Xian suddenly raised her head. By the way, the old madam is going to hold a funeral for the young master next month. It had been so long, but they still hadn't found him. The old madam was sure that Xie Rong was dead. Su Fengyun also suffered from the backfire. The old madam couldn't help but hold a funeral for Xie Rong. She only wanted to be lucky in her heart, even if she really didn't want to. Mu Shanji didn't have any opinion on this matter. He only felt that it was normal. The old madam also told me that after a year of mulberry, if I have someone I like, I can marry or find a husband. I won't be a widow in the Xia family. Tang Xian continued, speaking of which, the people of the Xia family are not bad. In fact, she didn't need these. Except for Mu Shanji, she didn't have anyone else she liked, and she wouldn't be tempted by anyone. The old madam also said that if I trust her, she can help me find a good person. The young master's departure was a big blow to the old madam. She doesn't even care about the wealth of the family. I think the only thing that keeps her alive now is to wait for someone to suffer from the backfire. Mu Shanji was a little anxious. You agree? You want to marry? Or find a husband? Tang Xian rolled her eyes at Mu Shanji. What does this have to do with you? I won't allow it. Tang Xian didn't expect Mu Shanji to suddenly hug her and forcefully forbid her from marrying or finding a husband. Then, he kissed her hard. It was a false start, but Tang Xian did not struggle. She was thinking that if Mu Shanji had been so powerful in the beginning, they wouldn't have ended up like this. After a while, Mu Shanji let go of Tang Xian and said seriously, Xian, don't fall for anyone else. I don't like anyone else. Can you give me a good ending? Tang Xian pushed Mu Shanji away and left. Mu Shanji couldn't answer that question. He could only watch her leave. After she left for a long time, he slapped himself hard. He hated himself for being so useless that he couldn't be with the girl he loved. Why did he leave at that time? If he had directly said that he had a sweetheart, he wouldn't be like this with Jian today, right? It would be great if he could go back to the past. After this incident, the two of them did not meet for many days. Tang Xian was annoyed that Mu Shanji was obviously infatuated with her, but he couldn't give her a result. He even told her not to fall in love with anyone else. Of course, she didn't want to see him. Mu Shanji also calmed down for a few days before he came to Qingfeng County again. However, he heard a rumor here. It was old Madame Xia who said that after a year, Tang Xian could marry on her own and she wouldn't interfere. Chapter 5294. Why did she say that? She was just following Xia Rong's previous idea. This way, Tang Jian would not be looked down upon and said that she was restless in the future. Mr. Xia is really a good person. It's a pity that he didn't live long. It's all because of the blood doll's curse. Otherwise, the Xia family wouldn't be so lonely. Do you think the young madam of the Xia family is lucky or unlucky? The last question really stumped many people. She was lucky, but she lost her husband early and became a widow. The young master of the Xia family was so good. She was unlucky, but the young master of the Xia family had already left his last words. It was indeed a blessing for her that she was not imprisoned in the Xia family for the rest of her life. Guelu, do you think Xian will fall in love with someone else? Mu Shanji was a little stunned when he heard everyone's discussion. If she likes someone else and wants to get married, I still have no right to stop her. Guelu didn't know how to comfort him. They were clearly in love, but they couldn't be together. It was heartbreaking to see them. Miss Gua was really not suitable for the young master. The young master was sad and distressed here, but she went to the beach to play. It was because she was a fool. How could she know the young master's emotions? How could she understand and accompany him? He couldn't persuade the young master to divorce because the young master was marrying into the family. He didn't even have the right to divorce. It was only Minister Tang who was dissatisfied with him and divorced him. Once he had such a reputation, he would never be able to clear it for the rest of his life. Guelu felt that his young master was really unlucky. Why did he have to deal with such an unlucky thing? Guelu couldn't answer, so Mu Shanji didn't ask anymore. He originally wanted to find Tang Jian, but now he didn't want to. It seemed that he couldn't do anything if he went. He went back in a daze. He couldn't sleep day and night, so he fell sick. After not seeing him for half a month, Tang Jian finally couldn't sit still. Before she could ask someone to find out the news, Guelu came to see her. You finally appeared. Where's your young master? Tang Jian was still a little angry. I just joked that day. Did he really not come to see me? Thinking of this, Tang Jian was so angry that her eyes turned red. Guelu hurriedly explained, it's not that young master doesn't want to come, it's that young master is sick and has been sick for a few days. I know that young master misses you, so I took the risk and secretly came to see you to inform you of this matter. Hearing that Mu Shanji was sick, Tang Jian forgot everything and was no longer angry. She quickly asked what was going on. That day, young master asked me if Miss Xian would fall in love with someone else. After that, he didn't look too good. After returning home, he fell sick not long after. Guelu answered truthfully and added in the end, young master was too afraid of losing Miss Xian, so he tortured himself until he fell ill. Tang Jian could not sit still and asked, where is he now? In the minister's mansion. You go back first. I'll think of a way to go back and see him. Within 2 days, Tang Jian used the excuse of going back to visit Minister Tang and old Madame Xia. After her parents passed away, Minister Tang took care of her a lot. Now, she should go back and take a look. In fact, she felt a little guilty about this matter. After all, Mu Shanji told her that Minister Tang went to the beach with Tang Guo to play. However, if he wasn't from Wuxian County, he wouldn't know. Old Madame Xia definitely didn't know. In the future, you can decide these things yourself. I've said before that you're free. I won't interfere with you. You should go and see Minister Tang. You just need to let me know. You don't need my permission. Chapter 5295. Old Madame Xia did not care about these things now. As long as the people who harmed the Xia family received retribution, she would be at peace for the rest of her life. As for what would happen to Tang Jian in the future, she had already done according to Ah Rong's idea. She believed that Ah Rong would be happy to know this. Seas and seas. The Xia family was not a good place. Why did she have to harm them? Tang Jian saw that old Madame Xia did not care about these things and felt relieved. The next day, she brought some guards in Qingyang back to Wuxin County. She left Hongyang here to keep an eye on them. Perhaps she had a guilty conscience. She also told old Madame Xia during breakfast that she might stay for a few days. Old Madame Xia nodded and smiled. Of course. If the person you care about is still alive, you should spend more time with him. Otherwise, you will regret it when he is gone. Tang Jian understood that old Madame Xia did not have any doubts because she told her about her own experience. She felt that old Madame Xia was indeed very pitiful. She had lost a family member. Although she was pitiful, she did have to go back to see Mu Shanji. She would not be at ease if she did not go back. When she returned to the mansion, Mu Shanji was indeed sick and bedridden. She used the excuse of waiting for Minister Tang and Tang Gua to return and stayed in the mansion for a few more days. Previously, Minister Tang had said that her courtyard had been kept and she could come back to stay at any time. The people in the mansion did not find it strange. The people around Mu Shanji were replaced by her own people, so it was more convenient for the two of them to meet. In fact, as soon as Tang Jian went, his illness was mostly cured. Tang Gua, who was playing outside, knew about the movements in the mansion. Seeing that the relationship between the two of them had been warming up, she was in a good mood. The two of them were no longer limited to talking. Often, as they talked, they could not control their actions. She knew that they would not be able to control themselves soon. Originally, Minister Tang had planned to go back, but how could Tang Gua allow it? She insisted that she wanted to play. Minister Tang had no choice but to stay for a while and accompany Tang Gua to pick up shells and stones every day. It was boring and interesting. She was very conflicted. It was not until the two of them finally could not control themselves and did something that should not have happened. In the next few days, they could not control themselves every day and would find opportunities to do such things. Tang Gua was finally satisfied. A single man and woman, dry wood and blazing fire. I knew that this would happen sooner or later. How's Elder Bai doing? That's fine. The situation will be over soon. 2 days later, Squire Tang said that he wanted to go back. This time, Tang Gua didn't continue to play with him. Squire Tang couldn't help but secretly wipe his sweat. What he didn't know was that something that shouldn't have happened between Mu Shanji and Tang Jian. The two of them felt that it was the most wonderful thing in their lives. They couldn't get enough of it. They always looked for opportunities to get closer to each other and threw all their worries to the back of their minds. It was not until Squire Tang and Tang Guo returned home that their short and beautiful dream was broken. When they saw Tang Gua and Squire Tang, they both felt guilty about what had happened before and spoke absent-mindedly. It's League of Legends. Xian is here. Squire Tang was both surprised and happy. Since you're back, you should stay here for a while. Even if you're married, this will always be your home. Chapter 5296. That was all Squire Tang could say, and it was true. He pitied Tang Jian. She had lost her parents at such a young age and had to bear the burden alone. Now, she had lost her husband. He did not know what to say about her fate. Tang Jian nodded lightly. I just suddenly missed this place. What happened recently made me want to come back to see uncle and cousin. If I don't see you, I'll feel bad about coming back for nothing. That's why I stayed for a while. Old Madame Xia didn't have any objections, right? Squire Tang still had some concerns. No, she supported me coming back to see you. She's very understanding. Tang Jian thought of something and said, Old Madam also told me that after the mourning period is over, I'll be free to marry. Squire Tang's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on his face. Old Madam has given a lot of thought. You owe her a favor. He had been thinking about how Tang Jian would live in the future if she became a widow at such a young age. She didn't have any children. Was she going to die alone? With Old Madam's words, he wasn't so worried anymore. If it wasn't inappropriate to talk about this now, he would have said that he would help Tang Jian find a good husband. Tang Jian stayed for another 3 days and hurriedly went back. The night before she went back, Mu Shanji actually snuck into her room again. She couldn't resist him and had that kind of thing with him. After that, she was a little scared and left in anger the next day. However, the relationship between the two was unusual. When Mu Shanji went to Qingfeng County, he quickly coaxed her and things continued to happen. For this, Mu Shanji even bought a house for the two of them to be alone. Tang Jian didn't refuse. She felt that it was good to get along like this. Especially after knowing that Mu Shanji and Tang Guo didn't have any physical contact, she was even more open to this kind of relationship. Young master went to Qingfeng County again. Squire Tang found it strange. However, he didn't care much now and didn't know if there were many things to do in Qingfeng County. He asked the people around him. Yes, the young master has been going to Qingfeng County frequently recently. It's most likely that he bought more shops there to visit Mississippi. Squire Tang didn't suspect anything and nodded, I see. Then, he didn't ask any more questions. It was just that he often went out to work and rarely stayed at home, which made Officer Tang a little worried. After all, his daughter was a person with abnormal intelligence, while Mu Shanji was a relatively intelligent person. After getting used to the outside world, he wondered if he would be dissatisfied with this in the future. Thinking of this, Counselor Tang realized that he had overlooked something. Although Mu Shanji was always coaxing Tang Guo at home, he would also bring her trinkets every time he went out. However, he didn't spend much time with Tang Guo. Even if he had nothing to do, he would stay in the study and occasionally read late at night. Previously, he had thought that Mu Shanji was hardworking, but now that he thought about it, something seemed wrong. Of course, Tang Guo deliberately let Minister Tang feel these things. When Mu Shanji was not with her, she would come to pester Minister Tang to play with him. That was how he found out. According to the original plot, basically wherever Mu Shanji went, the original owner would follow. Thus, Officer Tang wouldn't notice the problem. When Tang Guo came to play kite with Officer Tang called her to him. He didn't immediately agree to go out, but just patted her head. Guo, why do you always let Daddy play kite with you? Didn't you like to play with your brother Shanji? Officer Tang was shocked. He seemed to have neglected too many things. Something was wrong. Isn't Brother Shanji very busy? Tang Guo asked in confusion. Brother Shanji said that if he didn't complete the task set by Daddy, he would be scolded by Daddy. So, he has to work hard to complete them. He doesn't have time to play with me. System, Mu Shanji, you played. Officer Tang's smile disappeared. Although he had given Mu Shanji many tasks, he never thought that he could sacrifice the time he spent with his daughter to complete them. Was Mu Shanji using him as an excuse? Guo, do you want to play with your brother Shanji? Officer Tang asked. Tang Guo said, I want to play with Daddy. Why? Officer Tang was surprised. His daughter didn't pester Mu Shanji anymore. What was going on? The Peak. Chapter 5297. As an idiot, she might not be able to tell the specific reason why she didn't like to play with someone. But one thing was for sure, the idiot didn't want to play with that person. Her enthusiasm and fondness for that person gradually disappeared. Tangua guessed the reaction of an idiot in her heart. She looked a little confused and looked at Minister Tang. Her eyes were still clear and there was no trace of distracting thoughts. I don't want to play with Brother Shanji. She didn't need to give a very special reason. She just directly expressed her dislike. Minister Tang was really surprised by this answer. She didn't like to play with Mu Shanji. He wanted to ask why she didn't like to play with him, but then he remembered Tangua's situation and quickly stopped. Gua Er's intelligence was originally different from ordinary people. She was like a 3-year-old child. If he asked her to tell the truth, wouldn't he be making things difficult for her? He thought about it carefully. Tangua indeed didn't take the initiative to play with Mu Shanji for a long time. She didn't pester him like before. Gua did Mu Shanji bully you? Minister Tang couldn't sit still. No matter what, he must find out something specific today. Because his daughter was different from ordinary people, he neglected a lot of things. He was really not qualified to be a biological father. What is bullying? He made Gua unhappy. That's bullying. Minister Tang spoke directly. When talking to his daughter, the more direct the better. He couldn't be subtle, otherwise, she wouldn't understand. After asking this question, he waited for Tangua's answer. Brother Shanji likes to play with cousin. After a while, Tangua said something that surprised Minister Tang. A person with abnormal intelligence might not realize what was wrong, but a normal person couldn't help but think more. Even if Mu Shanji and Tang Jian were somewhat familiar with each other, because of their identities, they couldn't play together at all. After all, they weren't children. Tangua said these things, but they were only in the original plot. In this life, because she didn't want to see these two lovey-dovey in front of her, the two found a chance to go out for a rendezvous. But occasionally, when she was in a bad mood, she would go and cause trouble, making the two uncomfortable. Most of the time, Mu Shanji was tortured. Speaking of which, Mu Shanji was too much of a scumbag. Why is Shanji playing with Jian? Minister Tang continued to ask. He was already suspicious of the two. Now that he thought about it, Mu Shanji liked to go to Qingfeng County the most. At first, his excuse was to visit Gua Er. However, from Gua Er's words, it was obvious that he did not care about Gua Er that much. Otherwise, Gua Er would not have said that she did not want to play with Mu Shanji. Most likely, it was because Mu Shanji was not sincere and did not like Gua Er. It was also because Gua Er did not like to play with him. Brother Shanji likes to talk to his cousin. Cousin asked the maid to play with me. As Tangua's last two sentences fell, Squire Tang's expression changed greatly. It was clearly two simple sentences, but he heard a different meaning. This was also something that happened in the storyline. When the two of them were talking, they didn't like having outsiders around. Thus, they asked their confidants to coax the original owner out to play. The original owner wasn't a normal person, but she wouldn't be happy. But she cared a lot about Mu Shanji because Mu Shanji's past gave her a different feeling. If he didn't laugh at her, he would be a fool and helped her drive away those children who laughed at her. The few occasional acts of kindness were engraved in the heart of the original owner. The world of fools was so simple. They would always remember your kindness. Chapter 5298. Minister Tang didn't ask anything else. He called Han Er in and asked her a lot of questions. Han Er had been by Tangua's side the whole time. Of course, she didn't know about Mu Shanji and Tang Jian. Minister Tang didn't blame her. After all, those two were her masters. It was easy for them to send Han Er away. Even he was kept in the dark, let alone someone like Han Er who served Gua Er closely. You may leave. Serve Miss well. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. Yes, Minister. Han Er didn't know what happened. Minister Tang didn't ask clearly, but her intuition told her that something big was going to happen. Her responsibility was to take care of Mississippi whatever happened. It was not something she could control. After Han Er took Tang Guo away, Minister Tang immediately called two of his trusted subordinates to the study. No one would pay attention to this. No one knew that a group of people secretly went to Qingfeng County to find out what Mu Shanji was doing. Minister Tang was a kind person. He felt that as long as he did more good deeds, his daughter would be happy for the rest of her life. However, he wasn't a simple person. He could tell the difference between good and bad. Especially if someone didn't treat his daughter well, he wouldn't let them go. He felt suffocated when he thought about the truth. One of them was his niece who he watched grow up. He took good care of her and basically treated her like his own daughter. The other one was his son-in-law. He thought that he had a good eye for people. Now, he was told that the two of them might have done something wrong to Guo Er. If this was true, he couldn't allow Guo Er to spend the rest of her life with such people. Even if he raised her for the rest of her life, he didn't want anyone to make her unhappy. Dear host, your father is really awesome. The people he sent over are all watching Mu Shanji. Although these people only know some basic martial arts, they are definitely good at investigating. Then let's wait and see. Those two won't disappoint my father. He'll probably be furious. Your father treated Tang Jian with sincerity, and Mu Shanji owes him a great debt of gratitude. These two people. Can love really destroy a person's morals? You're a single dog system, why are you so emotional? Did you take a fancy to the system and the establishment and want to pursue her? Dear host, what you're saying is incredible. I still prefer to be single. What's so good about dating? Look, someone is still on the island and can't get out. This is the result of falling in love. As long as Mu Shanji was in Qingfeng County, he would meet Tang Jian every day. Sometimes, when they had plenty of time and were free and had the opportunity, they would do some indescribable things. The two of them were so engrossed in it that they had long forgotten their identities and the troubles of the outside world. They wanted nothing more than to be together all the time. The people arranged by Squire Tang soon noticed that something was wrong with the two of them and immediately came back to report to Squire Tang. You guys continue to keep an eye on them and think of a way to sneak in. Such a big house needs a few people to guard it. Yes, Squire. This little brother has heard that Gue Lo is indeed a trustworthy person. The personal servants by the son-in-law's side have all been replaced by his own people. This period of time is a good time. He should not have noticed that the official has noticed this. Go, I'll come over in a few days. Squire Tang planned to catch the two of them at the scene. These two people had betrayed his trust in his daughter. Chapter 5299. Guo I don't think Mu Shanji is a good person. What do you think about letting him move out? Minister Tang was very sad about this matter. At this time, he was actually glad that his daughter was a fool and didn't understand these things. If she didn't understand these things, she wouldn't be hurt. If she was a normal person, she would be very sad. Move out. Yes, I want him to move out. Guo doesn't like to play with him and he doesn't like to play with Guo How can he stay in my mansion? Let him move out. I'll play with you in the future. I'll play with you. You can invite whoever you like to our house. Under Minister Tang's nervous expression, Tang Guo agreed with a smile. She didn't feel reluctant at all. Minister Tang felt relieved. I have to go out tomorrow. Guo, you can stay at home alone for the time being, okay? Of course, Tang Guo agreed. Although she wanted to see the scene, Minister Tang didn't want her to see it. He didn't want her to get hurt, so she could only let it go. Moreover, she had the system to help her. She could just close her eyes and watch the live broadcast. Minister Tang wasn't a simple person. He had some tricks up his sleeve, but he didn't usually use them. It was Tang Jiyan and Mu Shanji who made him angry. He did these things quietly and no one noticed. The next day, Minister Tang secretly went to Qingfeng County. He even disguised himself for this. He didn't inform old Madame Xia. It was very embarrassing. If he didn't have to tell her, he really didn't want to. However, he would tell her eventually. At that time, he would divorce Mu Shanji and kick him out of the mansion. What he didn't know was that Xie Rong, who was trapped on the island, was finally told by a maid that he had recovered and could leave. If he could leave, he called CG and ran to the seaside. There was a boat there. The two quickly boarded the boat. He didn't want to take any of the specialties on the island. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, the strange white-haired old man would go back on his words and make him stay here. After about 2 days and 1 night, Xie Rong finally saw the coast. He was very excited when he saw that there were no other people on the island. But when he thought about how he had been missing for several months, he didn't know if his family was safe. His grandmother's body was strong and healthy, but after suffering the blow of his disappearance, he didn't know if there would be any changes. Before he returned home, he felt very uneasy. Returning to the shore, he bid farewell to the people on the island, hired a carriage and rushed back home. It would only take a few hours to get back. Just after noon, the carriage arrived at the Xie residence. Xie Rong, whose face was not as pale as before, jumped down from the carriage, giving 4 seasons a fright. Young master, be careful. Be careful not to break it. It's fine. You're too nervous. Your young master isn't made of eggshells. How could it be broken from a single fall? He had already recovered from his illness. He had been recovering well from the medicine he had taken at the beginning, but the recovery was a little slow. Then, one day, for some unknown reason, they took the same medicine, but all the symptoms on that day suddenly disappeared. The people on the island felt that it was very magical. Later, they took the medicine for a few days and found that there was no problem, so they stopped taking the medicine. His body was very good now. He felt that it was better than the average person's body. He had endless strength. He felt that he could knock out CG with one punch. CG felt a chill on his back and quickly followed Xie Rong in. Chapter 5300. The gatekeeper heard someone knocking on the door. When he opened it, he saw a slender young man with clear eyes and a rosy face. He subconsciously greeted him, "May I ask who young master is? What business do you have with the Xie family? Are you blind? You don't even recognize young master?" When 4 Seasons heard this, he was a little angry. He raised his voice, "Open your eyes wide and take a good look. You're not new here. You've been here for more than 10 years. It's only been a few months, and you don't even recognize young master." 4 Seasons was very angry. Was this guy getting old? His eyesight was not good. Young master. The gatekeeper was stunned. He looked at Xie Rong and quickly rubbed his eyes. He felt that the young master in front of him was a little familiar, but he looked energetic. A while ago, the Xie family helped with the young master's funeral, so he did not think of this. After 4 Seasons said this, the more he looked at Xie Rong, the more he recognized that this person was his young master. Young master, are you really young master? Young master, where did you go? The gatekeeper's eyes reddened. Young master, we've been looking for you. You're still alive. That's great. The gatekeeper thought of something. He turned and ran, shouting loudly, old madam, good news. There's great news. Rome could feel the gatekeeper's excitement. Actually, he was very excited too. When he heard the gatekeeper call old Madame Xie, he really relaxed. The other party called Grandma, which meant that Grandma was still alive. Even if she was sick because of his disappearance, now that he was back, Grandma would definitely recover. He quickly followed. For Seasons closed the door and quickly followed. When Rome returned home, everyone in the Xie family was very excited. Old Madame Xie directly closed the residence. She pulled Rome, crying and laughing. She kept saying that the heavens protected the Xie family and protected the only person she cared about. She did not ask for anything from the Xie family. As long as Rome could live well, it was more important than anything. After losing so many family members, she was indifferent to everything. Grandma, I've made you worry. The island master is a strange person. I can't leave the island because of my illness. The island master is our Xie family's great benefactor. Ah, Rome, you have to thank him in the future. I know. Old Madame Xie recalled what had happened during this period of time and told him everything. When Rome heard about the blood doll's curse and how the curse was broken, he calculated the time and realized how his illness had been cured in such a short time. What the two of them didn't know was that Tang Jian was having a rendezvous in the house that Mu Shanji had bought. Being intimate during the day was already the norm for the two of them. After all, they didn't have the chance to meet at night, so it would be easy to be exposed. During the day, the two of them were surrounded by trusted people and could find all sorts of excuses to meet. At this moment, a group of mysterious people appeared outside the house and tied up everyone around the two of them. Because some of Counselor Tang's men had sneaked in as cooks, they added something to their lunch, which made them sleepy. After they tied him up, Squire Tang was led to the room where Tang Jian and Mu Shanji met. While the two of them were in the middle of it, the room door was pushed open with a bang. The sudden noise scared the two of them out of their wits, and they hurriedly wrapped the blanket around their bodies. Squire Tang stood in front of them with his men, his eyes cold. Chapter 53:01. The moment Tang Jian saw Squire Tang, her head exploded. She was so scared that she fainted. Mu Shanji's face was pale and his whole body was trembling. He wrapped the quilt tightly and forgot that Tang Jian's body was gradually exposed. His lips moved as if he had lost the ability to speak. He could only look at Squire Tang. Mu Shanji, I've been good to you. How can you do this to me? If you don't want Guo, I won't force you. Since you've chosen to marry into my family, you should know what to do and what not to do. I, Tang Yuanqing, am not harsh to others and have given you enough face. I even considered whether you have an heir or not. Is this how you treat me and my daughter? Mu Shanji couldn't speak. He didn't know what to say. He just lowered his head dejectedly, like a rooster who had lost a fight. He felt aggrieved in his heart, but he couldn't say anything even if he was asked to. Squire Tang's words were heart-wrenching and he couldn't refute them. Squire Tang said, "Wake him up and tie him up. Let's go to the Xie family." The Xie family was in a happy and harmonious atmosphere. "Madam, young master, there's a guest," the gatekeeper reported. Madame Xie said, "We won't see any guests today. Go back and tell them to spread the news about young master later." "Madam, it's Squire Tang and..." The gatekeeper hesitated for a moment and said, "Squire Tang said there's something important. I also saw two people tied up. Unfortunately, their heads were covered with a cloth. I don't know who they are. Maybe it's something serious. Maybe some disobedient servants in the mansion did something wrong and were caught by Squire Tang. He covered their heads with a cloth to show respect to Madam." Except for this, the gatekeeper couldn't think of anything else. Otherwise, why would they cover their heads with a cloth? Since it was Squire Tang, no matter what his purpose was, Madame Xie didn't know. After all, the two families were relatives by marriage. When Squire Tang came in, Madame Xie and Xie Rong were very surprised. Why did Squire Tang have such a big entourage today? There were quite a few people with them, and two of them were tied up. Just as the gatekeeper had said, their heads were covered, so it was impossible to tell who they were. "Old Madam, I'm here this time." Minister Tang suddenly saw Xie Rong sitting next to old Madame Xie. He was stunned. "Xie Rong." Xie Rong stood up and cupped his hands. "Squire Tang. Are you okay?" Minister Tang was a little shocked. After recovering from his shock, he nodded. "It's good that you're fine. It's a pity that I'm here to spoil your mood today. This matter has to be dealt with. Speaking of which, my family Tang is in the wrong. Old Madam, it's better to let the irrelevant people leave first. This matter is not ordinary. Catching an adulterer was one thing, but it was still a scandal." Squire Tang didn't want everyone to know about it, so he decided to deal with it internally. If the people outside knew about it, they wouldn't be laughing at his daughter. The people around him retreated, leaving only a few of his confidants behind. Minister Tang then asked someone to remove the cloth, revealing Mu Shanji and Tang Jian's faces. Old Madame Xie and Xie Rong were a little confused. When they saw the two of them looking dejected and their hair was a little messy, they had a bad feeling in their hearts. Xie Rong didn't feel anything special. After all, he had no feelings for Tang Jian at all. He subconsciously looked at old Madame Xie and found that old Madame Xie was calm enough. She might have thought of something, but she wasn't as angry as he imagined. However, old Madame Xie's eyes gradually showed some disgust. She hurriedly glanced at Tang Jian and her gaze fell on Xie Rong's face. Although her grandson had been cuckolded, as long as he was alive, it was better than anything else. She had experienced all kinds of storms. This was nothing. "Minister Tang, you can deal with it as you see fit." After old Madame Xie said this, she still asked Xie Rong, "Rong, Grandma has decided to send Tang Jian back to the family Tang. Do you have any objections?" Xie Rong, "Of course, I have no objections." Previously, he was still wondering if he had shot himself in the foot and how to deal with his relationship with Tang Jian. After thinking about it, he decided to discuss with the other party what to do next. He didn't expect the other party to be more anxious. Chapter 5302. Both old Madame Xie and Xie Rong faced this matter calmly, which surprised Minister Tang. But when he thought of how much old Madame Xie valued Xie Rong and knew that he was still alive, she was not too angry. At this time, old Madame Xie should feel that it was good that her grandson was back and nothing else was important. According to the procedure, Xie Rong wrote a letter of divorce and handed it to Tang Jian. Tang Jian was caught red-handed by Minister Yang. She could not quibble even if she wanted to. She could only take the letter of divorce with a pale face. Xie Rong did not care much about this matter. Instead, he looked at Mu Shanji. He had long guessed that Tang Jian had a sweetheart. At first, he thought that Minister Tang did not agree and married into the Xie family because she was disheartened. Now he understood that her sweetheart was Mu Shanji. It was impossible for the two of them to be together. What he did not expect was that even if it was impossible, the two of them did something immoral and still wanted to be together. He did not know much about the family Tang's affairs and had no right to interfere. But from Minister Tang's attitude, he felt that he would not let his daughter suffer. Mu Shanji probably could not be the son-in-law of the family Tang. Unknowingly, the face he saw on the day of the wedding appeared in his mind. Speaking of which, the fates of the two of them were very similar. One was stupid, the other was sick, and they were both cuckolded. Old Madam Xie, young Master Xie, sorry to disturb your family reunion today. I still have some things to deal with. Goodbye. Old Madam Xie nodded. Take care, Minister Tang. She looked at Tang Jiyan and finally shook her head. What was wrong with her grandson? Even if he was not infatuated, he still considered everything for Tang Jiyan and even arranged her escape route. Old Madam Xia was not angry as she looked on the surface. She had been through a lot. Now that her only family member was back alive, nothing bad could wash away the joy in her heart. Therefore, she did not ask Tang Jiyan why she did this, nor did she look at her fiercely. She did not even intend to say a word to her. Minister Tang ordered people to cover Tang Jiyan and Mu Shanji's heads. The servants dragged the two dispirited people out of the Xie family. It's good that you're back, Ah Rong. Nothing else matters. After watching Squire Tang and the others leave, old Madam Xie patted Xie Rong's shoulder. Now that you're in good health, I'll personally find you a girl you like. I really don't know what kind of people will be like when they grow up. This is unacceptable. Although she was not angry, old Madam Xie was still a little scared. If Squire Tang hadn't caught her in time, she wouldn't have thought of that. Tang Jiyan was so busy every day that she did not have the time to care. Who knew that Tang Jiyan would do such a shameful thing? Grandma, there's no need to rush this matter. I don't want to get married casually. Old Madam Xia smiled and did not insist on this matter. As long as our Rong is fine, you can do whatever you want. By the way, Grandma, you mentioned that the old madam of the Xia family has something to do with our Xia family. What is the relationship? Old Madam Xia said, well, according to that expert, the person who stole our Xia family's providence will suffer a backlash and return to his original fate, which is even worse than his original fate. Chapter 5303. Since the day Su Fengyun fell, I felt that she had something to do with it. Rong, you don't have to do anything unnecessary. We'll just sit here and see what happens to Su Fengyun's family. I heard that it wasn't peaceful on her way back to the capital. However, the person who delivered the letter only comes back once every 10 days. It'll take some time for him to get the latest news. When Xie Rong heard this, he felt that his grandmother was gloating. He thought to himself that he had to quickly send someone to the capital to keep an eye on her before he could be at ease. Grandmother, I wonder who the master who removed the curse for our Xie family is. Where is he now? This person is called Elder Bai. Xie Rong was shocked. A weird old man with white hair and white clothes, right? Yes. Rong, do you know him? After the two of them described each other, they found out that the person who removed the curse on the island was Elder Bai. The two of them said that the Xia family was very lucky. Minister Tang brought people to escort Tang Jiyan and Mu Shanji back to Wuxian County. The incident between Tang Jiyan and Mu Shanji was more or less a legend in Qingfeng County. However, it hadn't been long since the incident was discovered. He believed that in less than 2 days, Xie Rong would return home and the reason behind Tang Jiyan's divorce would spread throughout Qingfeng County. Minister Tang knew that this incident couldn't be kept a secret. If one person knew about it, it wouldn't be a secret. He didn't deliberately block the news. If the two of them dared to do this, they wouldn't be afraid of outsiders talking about it. It took them half a day to return to Wuxin County. Minister Tang immediately gathered everyone in the clan. This was such a big matter, and it would not be easy to resolve it without holding a clan meeting. This was to avoid suspicion from the outside world, and if someone were to bite back at him, he would of course go through all the necessary procedures. Today, I've called all of you here because something very painful and shameful has happened. I need all of you to bear witness to it. Minister Tang told them what happened. Everyone in the clan looked at Tang Jian in disbelief. Tang Jian's head was removed. She felt the burning pain from those eyes. She felt wronged, sad, and angry. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Yuan Qing, how do you plan to deal with this matter? They didn't have the custom of drowning people in a pig cage for adultery. At most, they felt that it was embarrassing and the clan might remove the person from the list. Moreover, with their understanding of Minister Tang, he wouldn't be cruel enough to drown Tang Jian. Even if the person asking was the uncle of the Tang family, they had to listen to Minister Tang's opinion first. After all, it was Minister Tang who led the Tang family to glory. What's done is done. We've lost face and our reputation, said Squire Tang. The only thing we can do now is to stop our losses. I was blind and made a mistake in choosing such a husband for Guo. So today, in front of everyone in the clan, I want to divorce Mu Shanji and drive him out of my mansion. I'll have to trouble him to return to where he came from. He'll leave the way he came. You're letting him off so easily. This person is restless. How dare he commit adultery? He should be beaten 50 times before being thrown out. That's right. Yuan Qing took care of him so much, but he did such an immoral thing. It's hard to vent my anger without beating him. Chapter 5304. Everyone in the clan agreed to give Mu Shanji a good beating. Minister Tang was also very angry, so he agreed. Mu Shanji was dragged outside in front of the other members of the clan. He was mercilessly beaten 30 times. He didn't get 50 because it would kill him. Not many people could withstand 50 strikes. Tang Jian heard Mu Shanji's screams and was so anxious that tears flowed out. She knelt in front of Minister Tang and begged for mercy. Before Counselor Tang could say anything, the people of the clan started talking at once. This is a troublemaker. Jian, are you blind to fall in love with this kind of person? How did such a traitorous and ungrateful person manage to seduce you to the point of being infatuated with him? Have you forgotten what etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame are? Jian, Yuan Qing watched you grow up. After your parents passed away, did you forget how Yuan Qing took care of you and brought you to the minister's mansion? When the minister's mansion was built, he even reserved your father's courtyard and gave it to you. When you got married, Yuan Qing prepared a generous dowry for you and gave you a grand wedding. It was not worse than the dowry of other daughters who had both parents. In fact, it was much better. As for the courtyard you lived in, Yuan Qing still kept it for you. He said that it was your only way out. Jian, how muddle-headed are you to be blinded by this restless brat? What kind of magic potion did he feed you? The words of the clan elder left Tang Jian speechless. She opened her mouth, but no words came out of her mouth to plead for leniency. At this moment, her mind seemed to be much clearer. Yes, when she was a few years old, her parents had an accident and she became an orphan. While she was in a state of panic, eldest uncle rushed to her house and brought her to the minister's mansion, letting her live in the private courtyard with beautiful scenery. There were 2 rooms in the courtyard. It was the old house of the family. Her father lived there when he was young. Her eldest uncle remembered their brotherhood. When he built the new house, he expanded it on the foundation of the old house. It was bigger than the original house and became a spacious courtyard. Every time their family came here, they would stay here. This was enough to prove that her uncle really missed her father as a brother. Later on, she was taken into the minister's manor. Whatever her cousin had, she also had. Eldest uncle did not treat her differently. Eldest uncle had even spent a lot of effort in nurturing her. He hired many teachers for her to teach her the 4 arts. Occasionally, he would bring her along when he went out to see the businesses her father had left behind. He even told her that when she grew up in the future, these businesses would be handed over to her to manage personally. Tang Jian's eyes suddenly turned red. Why did she feel like she was still living under someone else's roof? She clearly knew that Mu Shanji was someone she shouldn't touch, but she still couldn't resist the temptation and insisted on getting together with him. Now, she even made an irreparable mistake. She had embarrassed her parents and herself, and betrayed her uncle's trust. He should be very disappointed. She had thought that her clansmen were mocking her for doing such a shameful thing. She really didn't expect that the clansmen wouldn't laugh at her, but instead criticize her for being bewitched by Mu Shanji. They seemed to be saying that she shouldn't have done that. Why did she do that? She saw it clearly this time. The clansmen's expressions were indeed embarrassed, but there were also many regrets. Your father was such a proud person. If he knew what you did in the underworld, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Chapter 5305. Tang Jian was very smart and good at managing the business. She was usually very polite and spoke well, so the clansmen actually liked her more. She was well educated and well versed in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She was seen as a role model for their daughters. Every time they taught their daughters, they would mention Tang Jian. Now that something like this had happened, no one could stay calm. They just couldn't understand how someone as smart as Tang Jian had fallen into Mu Shanji's hands. Tang Jian was also very confused. She was a well-behaved person. How could she do something like that? Mu Shanji's screams were still ringing in her ears. She was still struggling in her heart when she heard it. She couldn't bear to see him suffer. However, her rationality told her that the two of them had only themselves to blame for ending up like this. They had the chance to be together openly. Mu Shanji didn't have the courage, and she didn't mention it to him in a fit of pique. The two missed the chance. If one of them had been more persistent in the beginning, this wouldn't have happened. Thinking of this, Tang Jian regretted it. At this time, her mind was very clear. Even when she heard Mu Shanji's screams, she still wanted to stop it. But the rationality in her mind kept her from doing so. If she pleaded with her uncle at this time, there might be no kinship between them anymore. If her parents knew what she had done today, they would die with everlasting regret. If she could turn back time, she would definitely control herself and not think about Mu Shanji. Unfortunately, it was impossible to turn back time. It had already happened. Tang Jian fell to the ground powerlessly. She looked at the people around her blankly. At this time, there was no anger or grievance in her heart, only guilt and helplessness. She had learned so much when she was young. Why couldn't she control herself? No matter how much she liked someone, she shouldn't have done such a thing with him. Even if he was a man without a wife, she shouldn't have done such a thing with him. Thinking about what had happened recently, Tang Jian only felt that it was too absurd. It was really absurd. How could she do such a thing? Mu Shanji's screams stopped. Squire Tang's voice sounded, "Give this letter to Mu Shanji and let him go." Mother Mu was already outside. How could she not know about such a big thing? In fact, she had long noticed that there was something unusual between Mu Shanji and Tang Jian. In her opinion, Mu Shanji's identity was not ordinary, and he might be the one to sit on that seat in the future. So, what was one more woman? Even if this woman was Tang Guo's cousin. As a person in that position, would he dare to say no to any woman he wanted? Mu Qiqi's mother did not expect things to turn out this way. Compared to Tang Jiyan, who was now fully awake and what she had done, Mu Shanji's mother felt that Mu Shanji had suffered a great grievance and bore this grudge in her heart. Ah Shan had a noble status, but this family actually dared to hit him 30 times without permission. Ah Shan, mother will take you away. This was the Tang family's territory, so Mrs. Mu didn't dare to say much. Ah Shan had yet to regain his identity, so she had to keep a low profile. Revenge was a dish best served cold. When Ah Shan regains his identity, just wait and see what will happen to the Tang family. In the future, if Ah Shan still liked this family's daughter, wouldn't they have to hand her over to him? Chapter 5306. Mother Mu's fierce glare was clearly seen by the members of the Tang clan. They were puzzled. What was Madame Mu thinking? Her son was disobedient after marrying into the family. He seduced Miss Tang and was rejected. Wasn't that what he deserved? Which ordinary family wouldn't think such a thing was shameful? Mrs. Mu's expression made it seem as if the Tang family had done something evil and shouldn't treat Mu Shanji like that. Now they understood. No wonder Mu Shanji was so ugly. It was obvious that if the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked too. If the family was already like this, how good could the children they raised be? Mrs. Mu was full of anger. She angrily left with Mu Shanji. She didn't know that in the eyes of the Tang family members, they were a joke. They didn't want to see such a shameless mother and son in the future. They had misjudged Mu Shanji. They couldn't blame Squire Tang, who loved his daughter so much. The Tang family members looked at Squire Tang with pity. Then, they looked at Tang Jiyan, who was pale and regretful. They sighed deeply. This was a double blow to Counselor Tang. They knew that he had always treated Tang Jiyan like his own daughter. However, Tang Jiyan, who had lost her parents when she was young, was cautious. She always felt that she was a guest in the Squire mansion, living under someone else's roof. Therefore, she was very obedient. When she lost her parents, she was still half sensible. She couldn't really treat this place as her real home. Whenever Squire Tang mentioned this to the family members, he would look helpless. Now that this happened, Mu Shanji was easy to deal with, but Tang Jiyan was not. Uncle, I'm sorry. Jiyan failed to live up to your expectations. Squire Tang could see that Tang Jiyan was regretful. He only had one brother in his life. Tang Jiyan was his brother's flesh and blood. He couldn't bear to do anything to her. Calling the family meeting was the most ruthless thing he could do. He couldn't bear to do anything more. You know you're wrong. Squire Tang finally asked. Tang Jiyan knelt down and put her head on the floor. I know I'm wrong. Today's lesson is what I deserve. I failed to live up to Uncle's and the family's expectations. No matter what Uncle does, Jiyan won't resist. It's good that you know you're wrong. Squire Tang looked at his clansmen, who were all looking at him seriously. You can't hide the matter between you and Mu Shanji. People outside will know sooner or later. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find him in the future. It is Jiyan who has wronged Uncle and the Tang sisters. Jiyan is willing to leave the Tang clan. From now on, I am no longer a member of the Tang clan. In order to compensate the Tang sisters, Jiyan is willing to share most of the clan's property with them. The clansmen were indeed resentful about this matter. Now that Tang Jiyan admitted her mistake so sincerely, he didn't know what to say. In fact, Tang Jian's departure from the Tang family had reduced the impact on the Tang family's daughter. She was even willing to compensate them, so they couldn't say anything more. When Tang Jian's father was still alive, he had helped the Tang family a lot. They all remembered it clearly. Yuan Qing, what do you think? Uncle Tang asked. He also thought this was the best way. Even if Tang Jian left the Tang clan, she couldn't cut off her bloodline with Squire Tang. She would still get what she deserved. This was equivalent to putting on a show, so as not to implicate the Tang family's daughter. Squire Tang naturally understood. Let's do it this way. The family property will be distributed under my name to the unmarried daughters in the clan. Uncle, this is the only thing I can do. You didn't do anything wrong. It's my fault. I'm willing to pay the price for my mistake. If my father was still alive, he would also agree with me. Although I have the ability to manage the family property, I have a bad heart and failed to live up to everyone's expectations. Okay. Squire Tang didn't force her. The house in the west is quiet and there are few people. You can live there in the future. You can take whoever you want with you. Thank you, uncle. Tang Jian moved to the house in the west. She didn't take Hongyang and Qingyang with her. She gave them enough money and let them go. The two of them cried with teary eyes, begging her not to. Tang Jian was a little hesitant at that time. It wasn't until Hongyang's words that she made up her mind. Chapter 5307. Hongyang said, Miss, even if the minister doesn't like you, you can't be disheartened. Yes, miss, the people of the Tang clan have gone too far. We won't have any contact with each other in the future. Miss, you are now independent and free. No one cares about you. Why do you want to drive us away? We are willing to serve you for the rest of our lives. Qingyang said. The two sisters had been with Tang Jian since they were very young. Even if they received a lot of money, it was not as good as being with Tang Jian. The two of them felt that Tang Jian was disheartened because she was caught red-handed with Mu Shanji. That was why she drove them away. Perhaps after they left, Tang Jian might even become a nun. In their view, Tang Jian and Mu Shanji just missed each other at the beginning. They were in love with each other. Even if what happened later was a little embarrassing, they couldn't help it. Besides, feelings weren't something that could be controlled just because one wanted to. Miss, you drove us away. Do you want to cut off your relationship with young Master Mu? Now that both of you are free and in love with each other, why don't you find a place where no one knows you and start over? Now there is nothing between you and young Master Mu. When the two of them said those words just now, Tang Jian didn't want to keep them by her side. As soon as Hongyang said this, she would not keep them by her side. Whether she and Mu Shanji had missed each other or they were in love with each other, something that shouldn't have happened had happened. She was fascinated by him and didn't see her own position clearly. She also forgot about etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame. She was confused once. How could she be confused a second time? If Qingyang and Hongyang continued to stay by her side, maybe one day when the two girls said something, she would involuntarily change her mind again. How should she put it? She did like Mu Shanji. But now that she was clear-headed, she couldn't understand why she did such a thing without a matchmaker. According to her previous character, even if she liked this person, she shouldn't have done such a thing. Now that everything had happened, she couldn't make mistakes again. Otherwise, she would really let her uncle down. In the future, she would live in this remote and quiet house. She would abstain from meat and pray to Buddha. She would forget about the feelings between her and Mu Shanji. She hoped that her repentance could let her parents in the underworld rest in peace. No matter how Qin Yang and Hong Yang begged, Tang Jian hardened her heart and did not intend to keep them. She even gave them more money to let them live a good life. With this large sum of money, they would not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. The two of you should go further away so that you won't be implicated by my reputation and be unable to find a good family. If you don't want to find someone, you can find a quiet place to settle down first. Qin Yang and Hong Yang knew Tang Jian's temperament very well. Finally, they stopped begging and left with their bags. In the house where Tang Jian lived, there was only a gatekeeper and an old maid who cleaned the courtyard. There was no one else. After the two of them left, she indeed lived a simple life. But she didn't know that after Hong Yang and Qin Yang left, they first went to see Mu Shanji. Mu Shanji and Mu Mu's mother left in a hurry. Mu Mu's mother was also a little arrogant. She didn't even bring back a change of clothes. When the two of them returned to the four walls of the thatched house, they couldn't get used to the moldy smell. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.